Testing. Is recording also audio? Do we know? It should be good. Is this? Yeah. Yes. To make sure.
Okay, now I think we're ready.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. I am Beatrice Wynn, and I am the co-chair of the Arundel Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And I would like to call this meeting to order. And thank you, everybody, for being here to discuss the important topic of zoning in our county. And I would like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public. And before we start our discussion today, I would just like to remind a couple of just procedural elements today. And first of all is like members of the public will have an opportunity to comment at the beginning of our zoning discussion. Each speaker will have a limited of 2 minutes to talk, and we will appreciate that whenever they are going to speak, that they let us, they state their name, and also they keep their comments to 2 minutes, so that we allow others to comment. Also, before we start the discussion, I would like to acknowledge that we receive, or the staff receive, approximately, as of now, 17, correct, Patrick? 17 comments?
Got 2 since 5 o'clock, yes.
Okay, so 17 comments through the site, and I would just like to make like a very brief summary of some of those comments. Again, not going into specifics, but just acknowledging those that key concerns were expressed in terms of the zoning of our region. Some of the public comments overwhelmingly oppose additional development on Route 3. Residents consistently emphasize protecting the Jebus Branch watershed. Also a lot of comments about commercial development, rezoning, and also obviously these concerns reflect the community's commitment to maintain the rural low density character that defines our region. So I would say also the comments will be available to the public on the region's 6 hub. And obviously I will let Patrick from staff to guide us first to the agenda.
Yeah, do you all want to take a vote to confirm the agenda really
Yes.
quickly? Did you all have a chance to look at it?
So moved. Everybody agree?
Second.
Yeah.
Very good. We do not have a copy of the prior meeting's meeting notes. We haven't had a chance to finish those just yet. We will get those to you along with this meeting, hopefully ahead of the next meeting. So we don't have that to do. And other than that, I don't have other introductory remarks before we dive into it.
I'll just echo on Beatrice, like, we were at a public meeting this weekend. And it was talked about how, Region 6 has been, you know, a buffer region between like the Route 3 and then Annapolis. And, you know, I think we want to keep all of the buffer. We don't want to eat away. We don't want to concede parts of it to Region 5. We just want to keep the buffer as it is. So I'll just echo that.
Very good. I guess by way, the one introductory remark I would maybe make is, if any of you all would like to help yourself to pizza, please feel free to go ahead and get up and to do that. There are some snacks on the table as well, water and drinks as well. So please, don't be shy about getting up and helping yourself. Thank you. And maybe now would be a good time to do it before we get into a deeper discussion. We do have a public comment, opportunity now, if you want to open that and we can,
Have anybody online?
we have several folks online and, I see we have six people who have joined us virtually, and then we have 2 people who are here in person. Any of you online, if you would like to raise your hand, we can call on you to speak, and we will give you 2 minutes to speak and tell us what you would like to say. I see hands going up and then going back down. All right, this is Mary Beth Love. Let me call on you. Can you unmute yourself, Ms. Love? And we will give the floor to you for 2 minutes.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Okay, we are not hearing you right now. Are we?
I am unmuted.
Bear with us while could you try speaking again? We're trying to make sure that if we have.
Yeah, I'm unmuted on my end. I'm trying. Can you guys hear us yet?
Go.
Yes, there we go.
You can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You can, yes, thank you. So is this Mary Beth Love speaking?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us. The floor is 2 minutes, please.
Okay, my name is Mary Beth Love. I live at 881 Cecil Avenue in Millersville, off Millersville Road, within walking distance of the Route 3 Millersville 175 intersection. I'm a member of AMNA, and just to let you know, when they started the 2040 plan, we were at Baldwin Hall and we renamed ourselves Old Millersville because there was no designation. We are a small section in this little corner of Region 6 now that was Region 5 up until the rezoning. So we just want to make sure that you're aware of us, who we are, how we have been fighting for the historic and rural nature of this community. Millersville Road is a scenic and historic road, and it should be officially designated as such. And projects that would damage the road's scenic and historic values should be prevented. The road was originally built in the 18th century to connect Annapolis to other towns and settlements, including the town of Millersville, which is here right on the original Millersville is right here on the South Shore Trail. The road was widened to accommodate some growth, but not really. There is tried to be significant development along this road. And we really want to take into consideration all the environmental impacts as well as the rural environment impacts. I am a recent graduate of the Watershed Stewards Academy and the Severn Steward for Jabez Tributary number 4, which is right here in our neighborhood. And I will do my due diligence to protect this sub-watershed. We hope that all of you involved will take into consideration all the hard work we put into commenting on all the parcels, and we are here to support whatever you need. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Weller, if you could unmute and the floor is yours.
Okay, as you probably all already know and are tired of hearing from me, I'm representing the Old Millersville Neighborhood Association. I'm here to request that the parcels in this portion of Region 6 are not upzoned, particularly parcels 0160, parcel 0357, and 0536, because any more intense development would exacerbate traffic on Route 3, Millersville Road, their intersection, as well as negatively impact Jazz Bears Branch. I'm hoping that you've had a chance to read what I sent in, and for the sake of time, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you. Do we have any others, in the virtual space who would like to speak during the public comment? Yes. Deborah Unitas, I saw your hand and then your hand lowered. Would you like to speak, Mrs. Unitas?
Because your Zoom program is very disjointed. I'm really having difficulty with it. But anyway, the one thing that I wanted to focus on was the traffic and the number of accidents and fatalities on Route 3, which it seems that is being glossed over. You probably got my information that I filed a public information request with the Maryland State Police in June of 2024 because the Anne Arundel County Police could not or would not supply these statistics to me. In that 5-year span, there were 3 fatalities, 3 on Millersville Road in the intersections of Route 3, north and south. There were 273, I repeat, 273 non-fatalities at the same intersection. And this was during the time of the COVID lockdown. These are the most recent statistics I was able to gather. And something has got to be done about the roads in this area to make them safe before there's any further discussion of redevelopment of this historic rural area to protect the historic nature and to take into account the number of people who responded to the 2040 plan survey who said they want to be careful with our environment, it's fragile, pay attention to the Jabez Creek restoration, and reserve the historical nature of this area. Thank you.
You. Scott Blackadder, if you could unmute, then the floor is yours.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for holding this. I would like to just echo what the ladies have already said. I'm also a resident of Millersville Road and have been pretty active in trying to work with the county to keep our corridor here natural and rural. I was involved with the advisory committee for Millersville Park, and I think just in general, I want to make sure we realize how many people in this area are in this area because of its relative rural nature, and the expansion that's been happening on Route 3 has been just terrible in the last decade, and it just seems to be ramping up. The zoning was put in place for a reason, and just because people want to make more money, I don't think is good motivation for changing the character of this really beautiful and historic area. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody else online who would like to raise their hand and speak up? Okay. Seeing none, would either of you?
I'll say something for a minute and a half.
Okay.
You know, I had not planned to, but, my name is Patricia Lillick. I live in, 70 Linda Lane in Millersville. Our house backs up onto what used to be Knollwood, Convalescent Center, which has since moved, and now they're trying to make it into an eating disorder facility, but that's not working out. So we don't know what the plans are for this 5 acres. So let the water from that land goes down my driveway into Linda Lane. What else we have going over there? We have the Capitol Raceway, which apparently has broadened with the permission of a task force and police task force where they monitor, I think it's 109 different vehicles who would cause havoc on roads if they're not allowed to expand their activities going up and down Route 3. They actually get watched. And we've had 2 or 3 incidents where the cars group in, they do wheelies in parking lots, and they were moved from the Crofton area over into Pasadena, probably the past several months. That's noise coming down Route 3 from, I believe, from the from the Capital Raceway facility, which has just been denied further development as a, mining activity, for rubbish control, and you take all of your, exposed, all the building materials and you dump them there and you get crushed. So that's been, taken care of. But what's happening now is we're seeing increased traffic, along the roads we have been. It's difficult for me to talk about a little bit of emotion because we've been talking about this. I've sent letters in being pretty clear about the nature of the roads. When you go past Route 3 and head over on Annapolis Road, you go past the dairy farm, which used to be 800 acres, and it's now no longer produces milk for the Naval Academy, but it's still land, free land, and it is farmed over there. And we have the extension office over there that's promoting urban farms, and they actually have a wonderful urban farm that you can actually take visits in. Am I done?
Yeah,
Am I
that's the,
done?
that's
I'll
the
stay
tip.
done. Stay rural. It is a buffer between Annapolis and building that's going on in the Severn community. You lose it and you lose a really nice part of what I consider Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
Thank you. You good?
Just echo what all four speakers, or five speakers have said already about traffic, the environment, the historic nature of Miller's Hill Road.
Thank you all.
Great. So thank you everybody for providing your input. And again, the comments that were made public are going to be available on the site. Obviously, if you have any additional comments or concerns, please send an email to the staff at region6@aacounty.org, correct?
Correct, and I will say we do share the comments that we receive at region6@aacounty.org. We share them on the hub site. We've shared with you all the SAC, everything except the two that we got since 5 o'clock. I'm sorry, I just did not get those into your spreadsheet, but I will get them there. The ones on the hub site, I think were updated yesterday, so if there are any online that you don't see your comment, it will be there. It's just not there yet. So that's where we are.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Patrick. And also, for acknowledgement, we had the opportunity, some of us, to review the comments and make sure that we also, our residents are also, making sure that we acknowledge that we saw the comments as well, the letters as well that were received by the staff. So all of that is considered whenever we have discussions as well. So, okay, great. So the next point in the agenda will be the zoning map review, and I will let staff to walk us through it and then point us in the right direction.
So y'all, we got our feet wet last meeting, getting started with that. So we're gonna kind of just continue down the list and get into it. I am gonna back up just briefly. I know that Melissa and Jasmine, you two are gonna speak to your respective community associations about their recreation or open space. Did you get any feedback? Were you able to get anything from folks?
Cranberry Woods, I have not heard from. I have sent an email to the email address that seems to be on record. I haven't heard anything. I am, if we need to, I am more than willing to go there, knock on a neighbor's door and just say, do you have a contact for your homeowners association? And I'm sure they will. So that's something I can do if needed. For the Overlook, POA, I have spoken with them and, well, I haven't spoken with them. We've texted back and forth. There are a number of questions that they have. I'm going to be giving them to Patrick. Some are very simple, kind of like what happens if we agree to this? How long does it take for it to actually get implemented? Some of the other questions are a little bit more specific about the trust that is currently handling that land and how this would impact that. So we'll be looking into some of that. And then I just got, all these late responses are coming in. I just got a number of other questions that just came in that I'll be sharing with Patrick also. But right now they seem very positive about changing it to open space because they have the same priority, and that is to not develop.
Okay.
So right now, it seems very positive.
Okay. And
Yes, so
Barbara?
I was able to attend the April 14 Arden Beaches Incorporated meeting, and they gave me a spot at the end of the agenda, and I introduced the consistency change and the location of the property. I would say they're neutral on it. They say they already don't pay taxes on it, and
Mhm.
they think it's designated as a park. So I would just encourage in the letter to them to detail like what the change would do, and you know, it's possible that the Arden covenants already, like internal to the community, already prohibit development on it, so. I don't know if we have any other easements, but I think it would be helpful to the communities if you can do like an easement search, and point out if this is, making this recommendation because it's consistent with
Mhm.
what you already do. So I would say, they will at least know about it when they, receive the letter.
Yeah, we do have that information, and just so you know, so on. The group did take a vote on the Arden Beach property at the last meeting, and the recommendation was to move those to open space zoning, so that would trigger a letter. The letters that we've drafted, we tried to revise from our prior rounds and strip down some of our planner speak and put it in a little bit more plain language for people. And so I think we've got a pretty a good draft that does go through what are the benefits and why might you want one way or the other. And so I think it would trigger, give them some of the information that I think that they need to do. So if we can get a vote then on, I guess it would be the Overlook Communities property. And then also, we may want to go ahead and ask you to vote on the Cranberry Woods HOA property. And I think our initial recommendation for both of those would be to change from RLD to open space zoning and then RA to open space zoning. And again, these are consistency changes consistent with the planned land use categories that were adopted with Plan 2040.
Dirk,
And-
I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of the things this one text reply that I didn't get till a few moments ago. They have some real concerns about open space, and there's something that they read that said that there's a provision that allows the county to acquire open space at their discretion.
No, so I think that there's some confusion between our open space zoning and then program open space, which is a state grant program that often when property is acquired using funding through program open space, there are some requirements that come with that property then has to be used for recreational purposes and available to the public. And so I think the two things kind of get conflated sometimes. Open space zoning does not do that, and it doesn't transfer ownership, and the county doesn't.
They were just showing a link to the code library, Arundel latest, and it would allow the use of the area for recreation, not just forest. If the county wanted to use it, they could. Or if they require that we pay a fee in lieu of developing the recreation area. And recreation area, I mean, they now have some serious concerns.
Yes.
But I'm actually saying that I don't know why it took her Kathy so long.
Which
but-
code are they referencing?
Yeah,
Do
I'm
they
not,
have the code?
yeah,
Or we say code library.
I think there's I think there may be some misinformation, and so I think,
So perhaps one recommendation would be to end the letter, to kind of like make the reference to the codes that are pertaining to that property,
exactly.
just in
yeah.
case there's some confusion.
Or address some of these questions.
And address the questions, and then that way the residents can address those directly.
Yeah.
If needed, to be.
Yeah.
Cause I can see that there might be a lot of confusion.
I guess I'm saying that after reading this, I'm a little uncomfortable approving that change, at least from my perspective, when I now see serious questions being raised. Actually, I wish they had told me a week ago when I contacted them, but.
Um, then perhaps we want to take a vote on those two separately and, what, and just, again, our recommendation is that that all those properties go to open space zoning, which would be consistent with the planned land use designation. That would then trigger a letter, because it would be a change, it would trigger a letter that would go out to these communities as the owner of these spaces. And that letter would then detail what's the difference between the residential zoning, the open space, pros and cons on each side, and contact that they could reach out to us for more information. And if they prefer to retain their existing residential zoning, we can support that. If they prefer to go to open space zoning for preservation purposes, we could also support that as well.
And also, I would like to remind that it's a recommendation, not a change. In terms of the letter will trigger, this is our recommendation. However, the residents have an opportunity to say, we don't like this, and express why. So.
And that timeline would be, the change would be reflected on the preliminary map that would go out for public review. After that, the map would go to the planning advisory board. So between then, we would hear from the communities and be able to make that change before it goes to the planning advisory board.
Hey Patrick, what's the difference between open space and conservation? Is conservation protected by an easement that the county knows of, whether it's like held by the state?
Open space and open space conservation.
Yeah, the OS zoning is split, it looks like,
Versus
into the
parks and
conservation and the parks and open space.
Oh, so the latter two are the planned land use categories. Those two planned land use categories feed into the zoning open space. So during Plan 2040, if either conservation planned land use or parks and open space planned land use was applied to a property, then for consistency, the zoning would be open space zoning.
They couldn't get it confused between the open space zone versus the open space lot that is in a subdivision,
Right.
which is for recreation purposes.
Yeah. So I think what Joan is talking about is, and when a subdivision is platted, a lot of times they'll have an open space lot that is platted for recreational purposes. And again, those are typically ones that we would by default put open space zoning onto them, unless the community,
Well, these are in a conservation trust right now.
right,
So. in
probably open
conservation,
space zoning is what would be most appropriate.
Then so they would be conservation land or just open spaces now consists of both of those?
Yeah, the zoning looks like it encompasses both.
Yeah, if y'all are looking at these
Yeah.
handouts on your,
Yeah.
on the table, what we've got here is, we talked about the development policy areas, that's all the way over here on the, what is this left to you? These are the planned land use categories here, and then these relate over here. There's not really a strict relation between policy area and either of these, but there is between planned land use and zoning. So when I talk about consistency, if there's either a conservation or parks and open space planned land use, then for consistency, open space zoning is the zoning category that is needed, or just by default. But we can maintain if a community is all RLD zoning or R1 zoning, and they wish for their open space parcel or their recreation area to maintain an existing residential zoning, we can support that. And there are reasons that they may want to do that. If they want to put a playground or athletic fields or a gazebo or parking on that parcel, one of the residential zones may allow them to do that in a way that open space zoning may not. If they want preservation of that parcel, the open space zoning is probably what they're gonna want to go for. And different communities coming down on different sides of that.
Well, would it also then, and I'm just asking because I can understand their perspective, that if it is right now RLD, they have control. They know that nothing's going to happen without their approval on that space, on that land. If it switches to open space, do they?
It's another layer of protection.
Is it another layer of protection, or do they lose control that way?
Right, I think that's what they're worried about.
They don't lose control, but then if they have plans later to, and tell me if I'm wrong, Dylan, but I mean, if later they have plans that they want to build a gazebo or a picnic shelter somewhere on that now open space zoned
Right.
parcel, there are gonna be more restrictions, more
Yeah, they're not.
larger setbacks and things that would start to come into play. So that's something that they need to think about, and that's that's why we're trying to get this across in a broad sense in the letter that we would be sending out, so that they can start to think about these things and call us, and we can kind of give them, help talk them through these considerations, but ultimately the board would need to kind of huddle. And we've worked with communities that the issue is the board is not on the same page with itself. If in the case
In
of
this
this
case,
community,
if they're more on the same page as the residents, because the residents would be all about control to do what we want to do with that space, as opposed to the county having any
Yeah.
say at all in what we do with our.
Nobody's taken their ownership of it.
yeah,
No, but you're taking away their ability to use it the way they see fit.
Only if they wanna develop it. I think that's the
Well, if
key.
they want to
If
put a
they want,
gazebo down or
right.
walking trails, you're saying.
If
they
it's
can't-
already in a conservation trust or
Probably limited,
easement,
right?
that's probably more
Yeah.
control taken
It
away from
probably
you than
is.
any of this
It
has
probably
any
is.
relevance.
I think
That's the best
Right.
kind of
Right.
environmental protection.
Yeah, Seven River Keepers Trust is doing just fine.
But what's the benefit of adding,
Exactly.
like, if all it does is say, okay, you have, is it future protection if the future board's like, hey, we wanna develop it?
some communities have been concerned about that.
Yeah, so I
But
mean,
that's
that to me
not
sounds like the
applicable
only benefit is
Right.
if the current board wants to make sure that future boards
Yep.
don't
Right.
go develop it,
Right.
then they may put this as an extra layer of protection. If that's not a concern, then there's really no benefit to
I
it.
think it probably is, but okay, I get it.
Yep.
I understand a lot better. I think that it's probably more a question of them having to figure out
What they
where
want.
their comfort level is.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel like being like, you already have these easements, so
Yes.
you're already restricted in this way for perpetuity, so this doesn't really, I mean, but I don't know, maybe legally you can't say that, or, but it almost.
Did your contact have a code reference, like a code number?
It was, the site they sent it to was Open Space Recreation Open Air, section 17-6-111.
That's in the development subdivision code. That's not the zoning code. Those are the open space lots that are in developing a property.
So again, going to our point, it will be very helpful
Yeah.
to kind of provide more information from the correct source.
Thank
Because,
you.
yes, they
I
can
will
go
talk to you after.
very
so I can
confused.
respond to them.
Okay, you're saying that's not applicable then?
Yes,
essentially?
saying it's not
Right,
applicable.
yeah.
It's like a different type of language.
Different type of lot.
Law, yeah.
We'll
Okay.
get together after.
And maybe
the
what they
meeting.
already have, actually.
I think,
Yeah.
probably, yeah. We'll
Okay,
get together after the meeting and I'll be able to respond to this better and allay their fears, is basically what I'm hearing, so.
so in terms of like, since, we already talked about that, but there was a discussion, so I think just for the sake of time, we can go back to the Arden Park kind of, vote, right? Is that?
Well,
correct?
we have a vote already on Arden Park. I
Okay, so
don't know,
we're-
need to revisit that.
No, so we're
Okay.
okay, so we're in agreement.
So it would be the
Yes,
overlook at
consistency.
Cranberry Woods.
Okay, great. So, with that, do we want to do a vote, or what is exactly what we would like to, how we would like to proceed?
The-
Sounds like we need more
I think the,
input from the community.
well, our recommendation remains to change in those cases from the existing residential zoning that's on those specific properties and change the zoning to the open space zoning. That would be a consistency change, and again, that would kick out a letter to them
Right.
that sort of details these things and helps give them some more information.
If there's no change, do they still get a letter with an option?
They would not.
There's no discussion then.
Right.
Okay. So our vote would help be an impetus to have them be more strategic and have a discussion.
Yes, pretty much the vote will trigger that letter and then further the discussion within the
But
community.
basically, the vote is to say that we recommend it go to open space.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, and then they would have their
Opposed to
discussion.
Have the discussion.
Yes, yes.
Has anyone in that community requested the open space zoning, or is it just us making a
Just
recommendation?
definitely.
It's a consistency change that when we did our initial zoning analysis, we aligning the zoning with the adopted planned land use in the countywide general development plan. This is part of that. It's consistent with the adopted planned land use.
So can we have a vote to approve the consistency of from residential to open space
For both these parcels.
for the parcels?
Motion, yeah.
I second. So everybody moved, someone, how many, can you raise your hand? Favor?
In favor,
In favor?
change to open space. Okay,
One abstention.
and we have two.
Yeah.
Oh, abstain? Okay.
Oh,
Email it,
down as no.
just send them a letter letting them know they have the option.
Yeah.
And they can decide whether or not they want it.
It's fine. It will open the conversation. They will actually learn the response.
Great.
Okay. All right, so moving on, let's get in the Crownsville Hospital site. How about,
Oh,
let's just start. kidding.
That's an easy one.
Crownsville Hospital, so and I'm primarily focusing on the area, east of 95, or 97.
It's like, you're going pretty far out.
The cemetery is on the west side. Current zoning is RA. We went through very carefully the master plan that was put together and that we've had a presentation with. We looked at, our question was really, what can we recommend that would be the lowest possible zoning category that would still accommodate as much as we can with those master plan uses as they're proposed in that master plan. We wanted to kind of set that up for them. And so the big picture, thanks for pulling that up because this is more helpful. The colors are a little bit hard to see here, but so if this is Crownsville Road here, General's Highway up at the top. So a portion, most of the buildings and in the North Campus area, our recommendation for those areas is to upzone slightly to RLD zoning. That should, we went around and around with Joan about this a good bit. That should be able to accommodate a lot of the recommended uses within those buildings. Some of the uses are very general, like nonprofits generally, and there's not really a nonprofit permitted use, but we think that this kind of gives them the most flexibility to be able to use those buildings, the police state uses that are proposed for some of those. We recommend no change, maintain RA in that lighter green area, which is in the middle. And then for the majority of the site that is on the west side, we're recommending a down zone to open space zoning. The site is large enough, the forest would be preserved anyway, and we think that will accommodate the meadow, the path of reverence, all of those things that are proposed there. So those are our broad recommendations. We did talk to the folks who helped put that master plan together, and so they seemed comfortable with these recommendations.
What constitutes a dwelling? So one dwelling per 5 acre.
I would say there's more than one dwelling per
Yeah,
5 acre.
already there.
There's like at least a dozen structures there. So what's the definition of a dwelling?
But, well, hold on.
Living facilities, sleeping facilities, cooking facilities, and sanitary facilities.
But not just one. I mean, could it be a 20 unit place I guess is what I'm asking. Is that considered one
has
dwelling?
that, then it's-
Each one has, so like 20 apartments.
Yeah,
basically.
so,
Okay.
yeah, that's a multifamily.
I thought their plan right now for the Crownsville Memorial reconstruction was that there was gonna be some sort of, housing for people that were transitioning, either from supported care or from homelessness. So how would that impact that? That sounds to me like it would restrict that.
It would, no, it would fit within this. They didn't anticipate a large number of those units, and I don't remember offhand.
They call it group homes.
Right, but they didn't, excuse me, they didn't anticipate, I cannot remember the number that we talked about in the meeting, but it would be accommodated with this.
And the nonprofit use too, that doesn't get into commercial at all or any of that, or I know they were also having a partnership with the university, I thought at one point.
We're trying to get to what the actual is, not calling,
Yeah, and it was, the master plan is a little bit broad in the way that it talks about nonprofits very broadly, but our zoning code drills down a bit deeper. This seems to cover more of the potential uses that might happen, but it's, I don't know, is there more to say about?
The area you're recommending be RLD, what's the total acreage roughly? Just as one dwelling for 5, do you
I
know?
don't know the,
It's sizable.
I don't know the answer to that, and
It is,
I thought
yeah,
I had
it
that
is.
acreage
It's pretty sizable.
in my notes here.
That might make us more comfortable, I think, because it's a pretty large site, so
Yeah,
it does give some flexibility.
yeah, see, it's outlined in the colors on the right, right?
Yeah, so that looks like it's at least what, 20 acres?
Cause it's the recreation stuff and the buildings.
No, we're over 500 acres on.
Well, the purple area.
Yeah, and some of the northern, the blue and
East Campus.
I may have to get that for you, because I don't have that.
I mean, I guess as long as it doesn't interfere with the plans, I mean, honestly, the more we can restrict the development, the less
so.
traffic impact we'll have, but
Right.
at the same time, I want them to get good use out of it, rather than let it sit there and decay.
Patrick, you said that you reviewed this with the master plan folks. Were there any conflicts with your recommendations and what they have proposed, or?
I'll have to pull up the original email. There were some questions that they had that we had addressed. But again, the master plan tries to be very broad and general about what,
Future intended.
what future potential uses may want to come in. And so we were trying to recommend a zoning that would cover as much of that as possible without significantly upzoning. We didn't want to go up to R1 even on this site. And so this we think gives the most flexibility for the reuse of those buildings and allowing the uses that were cited in that master plan, the educational facilities, the nonprofit uses and such. It should set up these buildings to be able to be used for those purposes.
And I know there's just so much time and effort went into that. I hate to like a procedural,
Yeah. Agreed.
change. Prevent them from moving forward with.
That was our.
But we also
intent as
don't
well. Yeah.
want commercial either, right? I mean, I think we want them to be able to do the good work, but we don't want
Yeah.
a commercial center, right? A commercial
But
hub.
it's owned by the county, and unless they decided to break with the Crownsville Hospital master plan and suddenly lease to.
Yeah, but the Crownsville master plan is what they call it, a generational plan, like it's over the next 20 to 40 years.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I would like to make sure that whatever zoning we put in place restricts it from becoming a major shopping center.
Yeah, commercial hub.
I think
Yeah.
it would be under the current zoning recommendation.
Open space certainly couldn't be developed.
I mean, we had the whole, like, meeting where we talked about it, and they said there's a bunch of easements on everything, like, they can't do anything anyway. Did you talk to the organization specifically in charge of running the park? So, sorry, I wasn't quite sure, you said you talked to the master plan people, but like, what about the organization will be like running everything in the park? Did you talk to them about it?
So, do you mean the county owns the park at this point? So the facilities are out there now, whether it's the food bank or the, what is it, the House of Hope? No, we
Yeah.
didn't speak to them specifically.
I guess they work with someone in the county to like set up the food bank.
At
and
least,
everything. Yeah, so I guess
yeah.
that office that was managing it, I guess is what I was.
Yeah, those are the folks that we talked to. We spoke with the gentleman who came here and presented the master plan. That is who we talked to
Okay,
about this potential zoning.
and they were okay with the change too.
Yes.
Alright. Are there any downsides or cons to your recommendation that we should consider? That aren't,
That's what I'm trying. I don't think so. I feel like we've been around and we had enough heads in this that I feel very comfortable with this. And I think, again, putting the majority of the site, the dark green that
Yeah,
you see on the
yes.
left side
Yeah.
into open space zoning is
Like
a bit
90% of
more protective.
Yeah, and I like the RA retention too, because I know they also thought about doing still some ag work on their community garden or, you know, that sort of thing. That allows them to kind of retain that
To do
historic
that.
nature of what was there as a historic farm.
And that there are a lot of buildings there that, you know, if it's open space, what are they gonna do with all the
Yeah.
buildings? So some of it has to be not open space.
Right.
And I think RA is certainly the next step up,
Sure.
right? There's not
Sure.
an in between, so.
Well, RA is current. That's
Right,
what.
Yeah, no,
Right,
so
so
we're
trying to-
maintaining that. We're saying it's just the next step up.
You're trying to move it.
But the RLD.
RLD.
Change, yeah,
Section,
that's
yeah.
the
So
change.
just the South Campus, these areas right along Crownsville Road that you see up at here, and then the East Campus on the
How did
east
you
side.
get developed how they are when they were zoned
They
R?
were there.
Yeah,
They were already
very old.
There,
And
I
they
mean,
work
it would
county
probably be more than RLD
I'm
right
50.
now, or is it? Would it be maybe R1 or, I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, it's some other zone right now, that it would fit, yeah.
So it sounds that there's some type of consensus related with the proposal of making the recommendations of changing to RLD, the Northeast South Campus Active Recreation, and maintain the RA for historic farm, and the North and South Forest and Meadow, change it to open space. Correct? That's pretty much the recommendation of the staff. So can I have a motion to approve the recommendation? Yeah, a second. Thank you. So everybody in favor, raise your hand, please. Of keeping the recommendation of the staff. Great. Thank you.
All right. We can move over to 1450 River Road. We've got a couple of, we've got several consistency changes. This first one might not be a consistency change, but this is Rockbridge Academy property at 1450 River Road. The property itself, you want to touch on Academy?
Rockbridge, no, Rockbridge is over by me, they're right by the on Sunrise Beach, but I didn't know they.
They also own Federal Highway.
Yeah.
We have another technical glitch. Our these
No,
maps
no.
get glitchy, so.
Oh,
Yeah, they have a whole Rockbridge Academy that goes up into the woods.
well, that's
Right.
Yeah,
part of
that's
the
what
site.
we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me just talk while Maddie pulls up the right layers, and sorry, we have to reload this map,
Right.
it gets glitchy and
Glitchy,
we'll have to do this again during the meeting, but, so the property that I'm gonna point out to you is primarily zoned RLD right now. There is some open space zoning on one side of it. Our recommendation is actually to remove about 5 to 6 acres of the open space zoning and apply RLD zoning so that it's consistent across the full property. So that's, you can see the portion that is colored green there. That's the portion that we're recommending remove from open space zoning and apply RLD zoning. The reason is that this is a reserve parcel that would need to go through subdivision again if it were to ever be redeveloped. And at that point, the open space zoning is actually part of a larger stream valley system. And the open space zoning is is less than 20% of the property as it is now. And so that's been kind of a threshold that we've used in terms of looking at open space zoning. Typically, we want one zoning category to apply across a full property. Open space zoning, the way it was applied back in the 70s, 80s, it split zoned a lot of properties. Where that current open space zoning is more than 20%, we're recommending to retain open space zoning. I talked about this at the last meeting a bit. This is less than that 20% threshold, and it's misaligned enough that we would recommend go ahead and put it all in RLD. And when, if subdivision ever comes in or redevelopment, they would have to identify floodplain and environmental
In that
features.
whole area,
Is
man,
it-
there's wetlands.
It is.
Exactly.
Is
And
it both sides of the road or is it just the south,
That's the power line.
that's what the easement, that's the utility line easement?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
so
was
it's,
wondering if that was,
yeah, so I think it's,
and it's both. They
I
have
think
it
it's
on
both sides.
Yeah,
of that,
got it.
Right.
I was just trying to figure out if it was the whole parcel or just that bottom half. Okay.
Some of that is also RCN critical area.
Oh, good point. Yeah, so
Oh, so
the
there are
critical area and the other environmental designations, those are not being touched by this
Yeah,
zoning, so those remain in place
so it already is RLD for the.
primarily.
Yep, and that's the open space that's current. Okay.
So open space said, yeah.
I
So
didn't know
what's
that
the
was owned by
benefit of
Rock.
changing it if it's just for consistency, like it doesn't?
From a zoning perspective, we prefer to have one zoning category generally on one property unless there's a good reason to split zone, like the Crownsville Hospital that we just talked about. There's a reason to split zone that.
Or if it were more than 20% of the,
Yeah, then we keep the open space.
Right.
I'm sorry. So which you recommending the,
RLD.
Yeah, the green portion there would go to RLD, which is consistent with the rest of the property.
okay, so that's just one section of that
One portion of
larger
that.
property.
Yeah.
And the
Exactly.
school owns the entire property?
Yes.
And they do nothing with it right now that I know of, right?
This would be similar though, if
I've
you
never
were,
seen any, like, I'm trying to find it on the map, just.
we voted, you would send them a letter and they could be like.
Exactly,
"We
they're
want
gonna
it
get a letter.
So right now it's open space.
What, no,
RLD
only the
and
green.
open space, and we're recommending it all go to RLD.
Why could I ask, I know
Yeah.
because it's only 20%, why would we not recommend it all open space?
Yeah.
Because it does have existing
Oh, it does.
subdivision potential. That would be
Ah.
really,
Right, but the thing is, do we want more subdivision? The roads already getting crowded because of everyone hopping off 97 and.
Are we ready to vote now?
What is
Yes,
Rockbridge doing? You're gonna do with that?
So, sell it off, make a
So
development.
I think this one may be a good opportunity for Rockbridge just to have that conversations themselves based on their recommendation, correct?
yeah, and we're a little bit hesitant to recommend down zoning
I
in
know.
a way that
I know,
could
I get it,
trigger.
for their.
But it is-
lawsuits.
Is that green space right now open space zone?
Yes,
Yes.
it is, correct.
Yes,
So it's consistent with the lighter green or the teal color.
Yeah, the difference in color is
And they haven't
we've got a
developed it
couple of
right now,
overlapping
correct?
layers
Right.
here.
that I'm aware of,
No, there's nothing there.
yeah.
Yeah, so this piece is open space, but is it, they own all of
Yeah.
this?
Yes.
Yes.
This is our one or RCA or whatever, and then that's open space,
Correct.
or was open space, someone just made it.
And it disappeared.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, so if it were, right now it is currently open space, the same as the blue is.
Only the dark green is open.
This
It's a split zone parcel right now.
Yes.
Oh,
And they're
We're
trying to,
recommending
we're trying to,
remove this, make this the same as the rest of
what's the other dark green?
that's open space too. It's their parcel,
It's
it's still.
The difference in color you're seeing here is because there are
No.
layers that
So
are
basically, you're talking about the split dark green.
this.
And well, you got a dark green on one side of the.
She's talking about on the other side of the power line.
Yeah, they have both those sides.
Right. Am I speaking correctly? This is Rockbridge Academy as well?
Yeah, there's
Is that correct? Okay.
so that's all one open space parcel right now.
Yeah.
No,
under one
With an
council.
easement going through it.
The parcel is not all.
It's not open space, it's split zone. Only the dark green is open space currently.
I know,
The rest of
what
it
I'm
is,
saying is
yeah.
the dark green is split in two right now,
Oh,
with the
right.
easement going
Oh,
through
the
it.
easement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about both of those dark green
Yes, yeah.
parts.
I'm sorry.
And
Yes.
right now, they are currently open space.
Yes.
So they're the same as the blue that's right
Yes.
next to them.
Which
Correct.
they're touching,
They're
which is
touching. Abutting.
consistent with.
They're abutting.
Okay.
Sorry.
So who owns the open space that's right there? Someone else?
You wanna click on that and see, I'm not sure who owns. That might be county property.
I would assume it's county because it's basically a
So that's
crossing of
fine.
wetland.
House.
And then that one might be. Nope.
Isn't there a private drive that snakes
I
back
guess
there?
what I'm wondering is if we go from open space on this one.
But it's only the piece.
What's to stop the person that has the open space across from it? To say, well, shoot, if you're gonna go RLD there.
They could make a request, but right now, what you see is more than 20% of these parcels are on open space, so we haven't recommended a change on those properties. This is less than 20%, and that's the.
And they're in the
threshold.
critical area, so they can't do much,
Right.
yeah. They can still do.
I mean, honestly, it's a huge parcel though,
Yeah,
so
it
even
is
though it's
nice.
only 20%, it's still almost half the size of that neighborhood. I'm gonna make a motion that we keep it open space.
Hold
Anybody?
on, wait, I kind of, the River Road runs along one side of the property there, right?
Yeah, where is River Road?
Yeah.
Oh, it's over
at
there.
Arundel.
Yeah,
Right
It's
there.
right
yeah, it's right there.
So if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to widen the River Road, can they widen it onto the open space?
They'd have to
Is that a
acquire-
county road?
Have to acquire it.
They'd have to acquire the land, but they would acquire open space land and you can't put, would they be allowed to widen it then, if they acquired the land? If it's owned open space?
That would be county, wouldn't be a
Yeah.
private owner.
Right.
If the county. could-
But right now, it's a private owner
Right.
that has that open space.
No, but the county, if the
The
county
county
wanted
would
to
have to
widen it.
acquire.
That's the, I'm just saying.
The way I look at it right now is, we don't know if Rockledge is planning to sell it in the future. Or do something with it, but if someone were to sell it or try to put a development there, having the open space in the middle limits what they could develop, so taking it away to me encourages that. So I would say no. But that's just me trying to limit River Road traffic.
Excuse me, that
What
open
was-
space.
Well,
What was that?
I'm trying
Hold
to
on.
preserve it.
What was that?
Most of that open space area is RCA critical area. And the RCA, you can only develop one dwelling unit for 20 acres.
How big's the lot?
It's changing it would really mostly just help with what I'm understanding with consistency across the board, because there are other protections in the critical area for the wetland delineation. It'd be extremely unlikely for development to happen because you have those protections already.
It's-
It
But
really
not in
would,
that space though.
what, yes, in that
Is
space.
the critical area the whole parcel, can I ask? Is it all in the?
Not, so.
It's not all in the critical area.
It kind of, see the water up the top?
I do,
Yeah.
It kind of, it's 1,000 feet from that water along the
so it's only a little
critical water.
portion potentially,
You add critical area onto your map.
without making it go crazy.
Yeah.
It's a very, very small piece that's not.
Yeah, cause I'm looking at it right now and, I mean, it's not that far, but when you drive by there, you see that, well, you can look over and see the water.
Yeah.
So it's just an extremely small section, and even if it was registered for development, it would still only be able to be one spot, one right there.
What's the total size again of the parcel?
Yeah,
What's the total acreage of the parcel again?
It's 5 to 6 acres, so the recommended,
Change.
space moving from OS to
Yeah, so there would just be a little blip just south
5 to 6.
of the green there to the left of River Road. That would be outside of the critical area mapping, so it's a really small area.
So is that one part, the only part that accesses River Road directly on their parcel?
Well, right now, but it's.
I know, but
I
I'm
mean, it
wondering
backs up against a
if
neighborhood.
it's open space, they can't develop it. If it turns out we make it all RLD, they can develop it and now all of
And
a
then
sudden
have
they have
off
access
River
to
Road.
River Road.
But
Yeah,
all
just
of
remember,
the
we're not
parcels-
making a decision, we're making a recommendation.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
We're not
Yes.
making it.
Right.
They still can say we don't want it.
Sure.
Yeah, because all of the roads west of that are all neighborhoods that have houses surrounding the roads.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to come out the backside, they would
They'd
have
have
to come
to go to
out
River Road.
on River Road.
Yeah, they'd have to go to River Road.
But I think our point too is that all of the environmental restrictions that come with, that limit development, this is just one, I mean, you know, wetlands and bogs and all of it would still apply and would have to be mapped before any development could even occur on the site. So.
But would we be making it easier for them?
It doesn't. They have to get a permit.
We would be
I mean,
acknowledging that
right?
the OS
Yeah, pretty
zoning
clear.
as it sits on the site right now does not align or recognize the true extent of the environmental constraints that are on the site. And that's been the problem that we've had with OS zoning, is that when it was applied back in the seventies, eighties, whatever, it roughly tried to follow the FEMA floodplain at the time and some other things that we can't quite trace. We have better data now. And so our OS zoning does not always align with what it needs to align with. And this is a step toward trying to fix that.
And as someone who's done wetland delineation work myself, it would very likely expand. Past the current area where they currently, like where it is. From what 70s,
Not
you know.
necessarily. I do it too. Depends. Climate change and all sorts of, just, I don't know.
Well,
And then it doesn't mean they can't develop. They just need a permit and
Well, that's
mitigate,
part of
so it's
the
different,
point
you know.
That we have is that the environmental features are not static, they change.
Right.
And you're arbitrarily putting a zoning boundary, which is regulatory, on a property, saying that's the open space. And what does that mean? We have to have a justification for that boundary. Not just, saying that's where the environmental features are, or what are we saying about that? That's what the justification is.
Well, I mean, that's what it is today, so the justification would be,
Because that's what it is now. It's adjacent to
It is,
another
but
open
it's-
space area that's providing an
Yeah.
anyway for wildlife, like in that
Exactly.
area.
And the whole parcel is technically open space right now, right?
No, the
No.
majority of it is.
No. I mean,
It's
on the
not
ground,
used.
there's no development there, right?
Correct.
It's undeveloped,
Right, so I mean, that's why.
but it does have development potential in the sense that.
That's the
Yeah.
problem.
that's what we would like to avoid. Not all development is bad.
I feel a little weird about telling people that we're just gonna change the zoning down, and we're gonna send them a letter.
But we're not changing
not
it.
changing
We're
it.
upzoning. Yes,
No, we're
we're
recommending,
upzoning.
we're recommending, we're suggesting at least most of this side.
Yeah.
Keep it as is, don't make a change.
Yes,
I
so
just
ignore
It sounds,
it.
I'm just, I think the people that are gonna be affected the most are the ones that currently live on River Road and exist on, and use River Road all the time. I would understand this better if what we were doing was going from density to open space. A recommendation to go that direction. I'm a little more uncomfortable going from open space into RLD or whatever it is. RLD, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Going to RLD, which would enable more development without actually addressing some of the concerns of the people on River Road right now with the traffic they're dealing with.
Except that I'm not sure that it would allow for more development because all of the existing environmental constraints would have to be mapped and inspected
But it's
in
still-
any potential.
It's one less.
It removes
hoop that they have to follow.
removes one hurdle,
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
but
It may be a
gives-
small one,
yeah,
but
but
it
it's
is our.
another hurdle that they have to go through.
You're also saying two things, though. You're saying it has potential for development.
I don't think he means it has potential like a developer's, sorry, to put words in your mouth. He's not saying a developer's gonna show up with dollar signs in his eyes and be like, this is it. He just means that as an RLD property, it is able to be developed
Right.
in a theoretical standpoint. But
When
the other thing I'm hearing you saying is that like every regulatory hurdle that could be on a property is almost present just by nature of where this property is. Critical area, BG&E running through it, environmental concerns with the type of stuff that's actually on the ground. Am I
And then the road infrastructure itself, right? Am I,
Well, yeah, and
Processing
all,
what you're saying,
and all
right?
the other various environmental
Right.
constraints would still need to be mapped.
Or
and-
waived.
And ground truth to know exactly where those lie.
Yeah.
And
But if we had a similar property where the wetlands or whatever features took up more than 20% of the lot, we'd be keeping the open space, right?
I mean, you wouldn't
If,
have recommended it.
if 50% of the lot were open space because of environmental features, we would want the split zoning.
yeah, the analysis that we did was if the open space zoning as it splits across a property now covers more than 20% of that property, then we recommend
But map.
Right.
Cause we do have where there's no map features.
that's a good point, or sometimes the open space zoning covers something that is already developed, so we recommended for it all in that case, but yeah.
But we don't, in this case, we don't. We might suspect that it doesn't follow the same outline, but we don't know what the current outline is, so we can't really conclusively say it's drastically different from this. All we know is that over time, outlines change, environmental features change. It might be very similar to that, or it might not be. We don't know, right?
And
As
the
far
only way
as,
that, and the time that it would happen would be if a development proposal ever came through, it would be required to be mapped at that point.
but then mapping, it wouldn't force it back into open space. Mapping would just tell you
Trigger requirement.
Exactly.
it's got a
Yes.
wetland, so you have to
Yeah.
mitigate it somehow.
Yeah.
But if it's open space, it's one more hurdle that they'd have to go over.
Can I ask the question from the reverse side, right? So you say the only reason to change it is to make it consistent with other zoning?
With the.
Is there a challenge within the county for everything not to be consistent? Like,
We prefer, I mean, from a planning standpoint, it's our preference to have one zoning category on a property.
It's like a best practice.
It is, yeah. And that's part of where we're coming from as well.
But also there is a possibility that there is no recommendation at all on that property.
We can vote,
Correct.
right, to say no to recommend.
Yeah, I hear what
Yeah,
you're
could
saying, but I think I personally am here because I'm trying to keep as much open space as possible, protect as many environmental features as possible. So I motion to keep it open space.
Okay, so, okay, so,
Existing zoning.
okay, so I think that, yes, let's do a motion to keep this area as it is, open space, correct?
Yeah.
So
It would
can I
be-
have a,
So the zoning then would remain split zoned on this
Right.
property,
Split
RLD
zone.
and open space.
yes,
What's the threshold for a vote to maintain it? To not go into recommendation?
The SAC has to have a 2/3 consensus or whatever of the people in attendance. So 2/3 of you.
Of what, on whatever the motion.
Yeah, either way, yes.
yes.
Either deny the recommendation or
Yes.
approve the recommendation.
So pretty much, so I would say, yes.
Fractions, yeah.
Yes, so the motion would be to pretty much keep the zone as it is, this is open space, so can I have a motion to approve to keep that property as it is with open space? Can I have a second? Yes. Okay, let's vote.
Well,
Okay, hands up. All right,
This is
so
for retaining.
So retaining the existing
this
zoning,
maintains a split OS and RLD. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
so motion approved. And again, this is a recommendation. Yes.
So Patrick, procedurally,
Nothing.
that property owner does not receive anything.
Right.
That's no change. They are unaware that this conversation.
Right.
Unless they want to be.
Well, everybody in the region, including all of you all that live in Region 6, should have received a letter at the start of this process. So from that standpoint, everybody should know that something's going on, but no, they would not receive a letter.
On their
And
individual.
the other
zoning.
ones where we.
Unless we, like, to finish real quick, we may maintain our
Right.
recommendation.
Right.
And it would go out in the preliminary draft, in which case they would receive a letter and that table that I showed last week would note very prominently that this is an area of disagreement
We does.
where you all voted
Yeah.
something that disagrees with us.
So Patrick, there's nothing that we just did that would preclude them if they wanted to develop this and they could just leave that one part open
They would be
space.
required to,
Buffers.
yeah, have open space, meet open space zoning requirements
Right,
within that.
within that. So
law.
basically they could just keep that open space and develop all around it according to RLD.
Well, minus all of the environmental constraints that exist on the rest of the
okay.
property and.
Right.
But if they continue in their path,
Really,
what's the final vote, right? The council, they can always overturn us, right? So.
The
Yes.
county council can do
Yep,
whatever.
the
they want.
exact council, so the council may be like, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
well,
council has their final say.
and if this moves forward and we maintain our recommendation, then these kind of things we highlight, this is where the SAC differed from us.
Right.
And it gets highlighted, that's all it's asked.
Okay,
And that's just basically based on our interest in keeping open space. And not.
That's a good
developing.
point, because we need to draft a justification.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yes.
Because we want to limit development
Yes.
and have it as much open space.
Yeah.
Keep it open.
yeah, keep it as rural as.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Good point. All right, let's move over to Sherwood Forest. I know some
Yes,
of you live in
before I
there.
break.
That's gonna be interesting.
No, it's really not.
This will be easy, right?
I think so.
No, it's,
This parcel, it comes up as 936 Sherwood Forest Road. This is, a community property as well, but with a Sherwood Forest, I think, right? This is currently split, so where her cursor is right there.
Yeah.
Currently split zoned RLD, R1, and there's some OS zoning there. The areas that are colored that you're looking at are where we would, recommend to change. Our recommendation is to change this full parcel, to RLD, and that's consistent again with the adopted planned land use. So again, it would be a consistency change there. This doesn't affect the larger,
Parcel.
community parcel that then goes in and surrounds all of the houses and such.
Just where her cursor is, that one.
Yeah, it's just this property here.
Yep.
So that one, we're recommending change of the whole parcel to RLD. That's the predominant one.
And that's currently open space.
But portions of it are open space and R1. So here's so existing zoning, RLD currently, this is a little bit of R1, a smidge of OS space there. So again, we would recommend the full property go to RLD. This larger piece here, and then it extends kind of in and among the houses here. We didn't really recommend a lot of change here, except for this piece that is currently RLD here, just for consistency with the remaining R1 portion that's here, we recommended take that to R1 as well. And then they've got R2 over here and some maritime zoning, and we did not touch that in our analysis.
And the majority of that R1 at the north side is in the critical area RCA. So,
That's that dark green.
so even if the rest of the parcel, even if it's RLD, it can't be developed unless one dwelling unit.
Okay.
That community property? No, this is.
So that was our recommendation there, and then while we're in this area, if, the Brewers Pond natural area. It's currently split between RLD and OS. This is a county-owned property, so we are recommending OS zoning on that whole area.
Okay.
Are there any concerns or?
I guess I have the same piece of feedback as the prior discussion on the top of, not Birch Pond one, but the top of Sherwood Forest one of
936 Sherwood
of
Forest.
proving it OS for the same logic as the last discussion. I mean, I understand that for.
There's almost no.
Yeah, the OS is super tiny, it's that little teeny tiny.
It's not, it's so small, they couldn't put anything there
A
anyway.
little sliver there.
No,
or something
okay.
less. So
And
currently
it's all a
this,
creek, it
this
looks
is
like.
R1 and this is RLD.
Okay.
And you're
And-
I'm sorry, you're recommending that.
The predominant RLD
So
be
you're,
extended to the
you're
full
down
property.
zoning that one, that part, right? Said.
Part of it, part of it.
Part of,
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah, it's a portion that is R1,
That
we're
you're moving
recommending
RLD.
extend the predominant zone to the full property.
Right, so they're down zoning,
Yeah.
except for the range, all that space, lunches.
Which then, triggers,
Triggers it to go the other direction.
but it's also platted as Sherwood Forest, I mean, Sherwood Forest is not gonna.
They're not gonna sell it because they don't want any more houses back there either.
Exactly.
All right.
But again, it would kick out a ladder that then could be
What was the pond one? Sorry, I missed that.
So.
that's to go to open space, it's a
Yeah.
county property.
so probably we can,
All three.
just, we can, do we want to vote separated, one, or like both, together in terms of Sherwood
There's three,
Forest?
right?
Well, that's up to you all.
There's
There
three.
is only two. It's two.
That was
Sherwood.
on that one, and then
I-
you said there was, or that one's
Well,
not up for
I
discussion
did
right
mention
now.
the
Yeah.
other Sherwood property.
Yeah,
There's a minor change that we're recommending here,
Right.
but in both cases, it's applying the predominant residential zone to the full property.
The Brewer's Pond is also a Sherwood property, the one that you pointed out.
That's a county.
Okay.
yeah.
That's the dark creek.
That's a dark
Yeah,
green,
that's
and
what
we're
it's
recommending
posing open
OS.
space.
And this
Full property.
proposal leads to open space.
All right.
And then show the third one real fast again. So you got the pond, you've got that one to go to RLD, what's the one next to it again? This,
Hand up just a little. No, I'm sorry.
Other way.
That way, yeah. It's this area right here this is all R1, this is currently RLD, I believe, and. Yeah, this goes back to the 80s or pre-computer days when zoning was done and we didn't have
right.
parcel layer, or parcel lines on our maps.
Mhm.
I imagine that they were trying to align this with that property line, and that was as close as they got, and that's where we are today. So this is in a way trying to align
Yeah.
the zoning with the property lines is what we're doing basically.
So is that red line separate? The one that is light cream color right now? That space, what's that?
This is both of these are Sherwood Forest property. That's currently R1. We're recommending take this to R1, consistent with this portion. We're recommending take this little bit of OS to RLD, which is
Okay.
consistent with the bulk of that
Got
property.
it, thank you.
Were there any additional concerns?
I guess one more question, the letters that get triggered here, I guess, are the justifications that are stated in the letters such that beyond just consistency, but also upgrading or downgrading, I mean, I guess there's a detail in the letter that indicates what the impetus is in the change.
There would be, yes, our justification for why we're making that change. And then there's a little bit of information about what the zones mean. It's like a 1 or 2 word description of the zoning category. Yeah. And then we're
Motion to
always
vote
here
on all
for
three?
questions. Yep.
And then yes, the motion to approve the recommendation from the staff, that is to, move that change, or the change of the zoning to RLD. And then the second property, Brewer's Pond, from RLD to OS, open space. So can I have a motion
Third
to,
one, is that not up for?
Yeah, we can do the
discussion?
third one as well, but
Yeah,
extending R1 to that full.
I feel like it would be
easier
to vote on the pond one on its own. And then the other one.
Sherwood one separately.
That's fine.
okay, so let's do the one that open space, so Brewer's Pond, can I have a motion to approve the, recommendation from the staff to move it to, open space?
Second.
Second, okay, everybody in favor, raise your hand.
very good.
Then the second one, which is separated, which is a property, 936 Sherwood Forest Road. The recommendation is to change all to RLD with a portion of R1. Is that correct?
Do it all RLD.
Where's
Moving all
RLD?
to RLD.
Remind me. It's all RLD?
Yeah, one parcel, you're basically giving up a bit of R one to make it
Yeah.
RLD, the other one, you're coming back a bit of the
Right.
RLD to put it R one, just to line up, so it's like.
Yeah.
So the motion is to approve the recommendation from the staff to recommend a change to all to RLD. Correct.
So we're just doing the one parcel.
Yeah,
Yes.
one at a time. So the
Okay,
first
yeah.
one is to go make it all RLD.
RLD,
Yeah.
to approve, okay, thank you. Everybody in favor?
Okay.
Then the legal portion, right?
What's that one called?
I don't have it here.
Yeah.
That's the fourth bullet on your.
Oh,
Ah, it's
sheet
like for,
there, so sorry,
it's all cool.
yeah. it's all-
Yeah. Okay. Yes, well, the property, saying to just extend R1, right?
Yes, R1 to the.
This
to
is
the
yeah,
full.
they're going,
So we're going
taking
from
away
R.
some RLD to
Yeah.
make it R1, because the bulk of it is R1.
Yeah.
Just to give the recommendation of the staff to keep it consistent with the rest of the adjacent portion.
To the
Okay.
R1. Okay.
Motion to approve the recommendation from staff. Okay. Everybody in favor?
Okay.
That's two no's?
Yeah.
We do a yes or no.
Yeah.
I said yes.
Okay. Oh, you said, it. Oh. I think only.
So
one.
again,
Just one.
everybody vote approve? Okay. Thank you. All right. So.
We're at,
I guess we take a quick break.
yeah, I was gonna say,
Okay.
we're at
Yeah.
7 o'clock, I might just break, so why don't we take it?
That is our. Schedule for it.
Let's go to 1823 General's Highway. This was, an application that you all received and would have looked at. So,
23.
1823 General's Highway.
This was a request from R1 to a commercial, correct?
C4, yeah, so 1.62 acres, they requested C4 in order to accommodate their existing electrical contracting company, which is is registered as a legal non-conforming use. They would need C4 zoning to be fully, by right operational. Otherwise, they're under any other commercial zone, they would be non-conforming. 1823 General's Highway.
Did we review this last time?
That's what I said. I was like, this
Yeah,
sounds
that's
familiar.
This we did,
Yeah.
okay.
This is by Carriage Hill.
I don't think
What?
we did.
Next to Carriage Hill.
Oh. looking it up right
Got it. Yes, no, I don't
We did
remember.
the car.
Yes, we did
Yeah,
the
and
ones.
then the ones by the new
Yeah.
South Shore Park that's supposed to go.
Okay, yeah, this is a completely different property. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Sorry.
So again, there's an existing electrical contracting company kind of in the back of a house, off of General's Highway. They are legally operating as a non-conforming use. Our recommendation though is to retain, yeah, thank you, this is the.
This is the one that has the
Aerial.
horse out.
Yeah, it's the
Really
big
nice.
horse. Yeah,
How?
So,
I think it's a horse. I think it's a horse.
Quadruped. But
Thanks, I don't know.
what does that mean to be operating as, but not, like, they're not zoned, but they're doing it anyway?
legally, because okay.
Yeah,
zoning
explain.
gal who has pizza in her mouth is gonna.
Oh, sorry about that.
Sorry.
For me.
They had at some point registered to be non-conforming and then proved that they had been doing this business on their property for an amount of time to say that it's been there. So they had to prove that it was there at a time when it was allowed. And
Well,
then
when it was
they were
allowed,
allowed.
not that they've hidden it so well, that it was.
Right, then it became not allowed because zoning changed. And so they applied to be non-conforming, and if it's been approved, then they are allowed to stay there as non-conforming
Indefinitely or?
indefinitely.
Oh, wow.
But I can sell it to you and you can continue the business.
Oh.
Yeah.
But if we put it in a light four, someone else can come in with a gas station.
No, they cannot develop it. Not,
No,
if you change it to
We
C four,
change it to
they'll be
C4.
allowed to develop it into any of the uses that are allowed on C four.
Like a
Right
gas station.
now, you do it as an electrical company, and if they wanna change the use, they have to apply to the
Brewery.
zoning officer to change that use under the non-conforming.
So currently the request is to change it to C4, correct?
To change to C4, they want to be able to operate.
Legally.
without
Within the
conforming
boundaries
restrictions.
of their zone.
But our recommendation is maintain the existing R1 because it's surrounded by, and it's a neighborhood there.
Yeah.
The carriage feels.
And again, if they sold it, who
Yeah.
knows what it would be?
Yeah,
I
so
would-
keeping it as is means they can continue to operate, we're not impacting their livelihood. It just prevents them from, in the future, selling it and being able to do
Exactly.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts.
And then,
Yeah.
right now,
One, just down the street.
right now, under the non-conforming, if they wanted to expand, they have to go through the special exception process, and that's public hearing, so people would know about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like there's consensus enough for vote. So everybody in favor of continue with the existing zoning, which is R1 for this property. Raise your hand. In favor?
Motion.
Yeah,
Second.
just to make it a little bit more, you can vote.
Great. All right, let's move to the Crownsville Road property. This was CRV 13. If you are following along with the application number, you got testimony on this today. So if you had a chance to see the letter that I added to one of them. It's not an address, it's just a Crownsville Road property. If you look here, these are adjacent to the Red Fair property, so 105 acres.
This is the letter with the people that have the parking on their property today?
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I did not have a chance to
Yes,
read in depth.
it's, that's the currently.
That's the letter.
Renaissance Festival
Parking, right, yeah, yep.
Okay.
They're
I
basically
follow you,
overflow
yes.
parking for the
Yes.
fair.
Yes,
Right.
I did know that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I wrote in my notes here, yes, it is used for vehicle parking for the festival. They requested R1, so currently RA, 105 acres. They requested R1 in order to be able to provide low-density residential development in order to meet housing needs. I don't know if the letter today said, do any of you have any more to say based on the letter that was supplied as testimony today? I don't know if there's any
I
additional.
think they're just saying it doesn't have like forested.
They're saying it's open field now because it's used for the parking. My question would be, if we gave them the ability to make it residential, they're clearly gonna have homes developed on it. What does that do for the parking for the Renaissance?
It's not like they're asking RA to RLD, they're skipping a step. So how many acres is it? It's
105.
So we're looking at, 5 houses currently possible. Versus, I don't know, what would the build out of that be?
A lot.
Well, R1 is, more or less 1 unit per acre.
Acre, yeah, one an
So
acre.
it's like 100 homes.
units. 5 to 100.
So someone testimony at the last
Yeah.
meeting, I think, said that very correctly, that there's a link between land use and transportation. You can't separate the two. And when you build in the suburbs, you generate 10 vehicle trips for every single family home, which means 100 homes is 1,000 trips.
Yeah.
Right now, Crownsville Road only sees 7,000 trips a day. And those trips, when they're single family homes, they're not on the weekend like the Renaissance Festival. They're at rush hour every day.
Right.
And about 40% of the trips typically are during rush hour, so you're looking at a significant uptick.
Yeah.
On Crownsville Road, on the light at 450, on the light at General's Highway, a lot more traffic. And yeah, the county needs more housing, but we need more housing in places where you don't have to get in a car and drive to your school, to your post office, to a restaurant, to work. So this is like one of the worst places in the county where you could put more housing. It's rural.
And our recommendation is to maintain the RA zoning as it is now.
Yes.
I'm thinking about, we had previously discussed the one on the request on Honeysuckle Lane. And they were requesting to go from RA to RLD.
Yeah.
And we said no
No.
because of the
Sure.
impact it would have.
On Honeysuckle.
So I'm just wanted to remind us
Yeah.
of what our discussion was if we want to be consistent.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of the justifications, it might have been for both of these properties, but it was, in at least one of them was, oh, because Crownsville Hospital is gonna be reopened and more active, but we just went over that. Crownsville Hospital is gonna be open space and RA and RLD. So it's not gonna be some huge
Development.
urban center. It's
Yeah.
gonna be rural.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just nothing to back up zoning this.
Okay. Okay, so that it seems that we can, have a motion to approve the retaining of the, yes,
They were asking to go from RA to R1.
yes.
Would we consider RLD?
No.
As we did it before.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
asking, I'm just asking the question.
Yes.
Well, I would say though, in future decisions, if you all have a discussion and then you want to suggest something other than what we,
Yeah.
you can do that.
Okay.
I don't know that this is the place to do
No.
it. or
No,
that you
probably
want to,
not,
but
probably not. I just.
procedurally, yes, by all means.
Ask the question because there's a zoning in between those two. That's all.
Well, there's
Yeah.
one more thing I think they said in their letter, or in their submittal about, oh, it's only used for parking lot, it's not used for anything else, but they harvest hay off that field. When it's not in use, it's only in use for the festival for a few weekends a year, but all summer they grow and they harvest
Okay.
hay from it. So it is used in an agricultural setting.
So if they had asked to go from an RA to an RLD, would your recommendation have said yes? Because you just, in the notes, all it says is there are no adjacent parcels developed at R1 density.
Yeah, I noticed like most of your recommendations had that logic. It doesn't mention like sewer or water or traffic, you know, there's a.
There would be separate.
Well, we do.
There is no sewer.
Right, that's what I mean, but because there is none, you know, like, there's all a host of, I mean,
You only need an
assuming that's
acre.
why the other parcels around it are also that way.
Right, it's just, I think there are some that are RLD around there, and I guess I'm just wondering if
Not,
they had asked for
Not in
RLD.
that.
not adjacent,
They aren't adjacent?
Not in.
Thank you.
Are we
it's
good?
open space and RA, that's it.
But isn't that RLD right on the backside?
Is that
That's
open
open
space?
So,
Oh, dark green.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm getting my colors.
All right, so
we're
it
going
sounds,
there next.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that we can have a motion to approve the retaining the current zone, which is RA for the Crownsville Road, 105 acres property.
Motion.
Second.
Second, okay, everybody in favor?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and so if we can just slide a little to the right and down. We're looking at Waterworks Park, and the city of Annapolis owns a slew of properties here. You're familiar with the solar farm,
Yes.
Yeah.
I see on the map, I've never been.
Back to consistency or?
Yeah, Heights right on.
yeah, so we're not looking at this is not an application, but we do have some things to talk about on this large site. So all these properties that she's indicating there with her cursor, basically city of Annapolis properties, you have the reservoir, the solar farm, all of that. The site so there's about 585 acres total on this site. It's currently split zoned between open space and RA zoning. The city intends to maintain the Waterworks Park, of course. They want to maintain the solar array that's there, and then they are interested in setting up the possibility of adaptive reuse on the historic buildings that are at the base of the dam, so right onto Fence Highway, all the way there on the south where she's zooming in, and we'll pull up an aerial and such in a minute. But I wanna read, well, big picture, our recommendation basically is where the solar array is, we want to actually maintain the RA zoning, following its alignment and then recommend OS zoning for the remainder of Waterworks Park, okay? So that covers the majority of the city properties, but then if we zoom in on the very southern and these structures here, that's kind of where I want to focus the conversation, because if you've driven down there, you've got some historic buildings and the water treatment area. The city just passed its comprehensive plan, I think in the last year, and in it, they identified these two areas here as key adaptive reuse area priorities for the city. And I'm just gonna read what they have in their comprehensive plan. A small portion of the city's Waterworks Park property close to Maryland 450 should be restored, repurposed, and rezoned for one or more uses which will complement the adjacent park and generate revenue for the city's park system. Appropriate uses might include a destination restaurant or food service area, a brewery, distillery, event space, educational or research facility, sports retail, or a combination of multiple uses. There are three significant historic buildings: the 1907 Pump House, which is on the left there.
Right.
The 1929 Water Treatment Building, I think is the one on it's that one, yeah. And then the engineer's house from the 1880s, which is back over there.
Yeah.
The old house at the front. And then various abandoned infrastructure that would be adaptively reused in a redevelopment. And so this is listed as one of the key priorities for the city and its comprehensive plan. And that's kind of the thrust of what they
So a couple of questions. Reuse means not
Tear down.
tear down, well,
Yeah.
even if it's not adding new structures, it's repurposing the existing ones. Can we zoom out just to see, like, say they put a really good distillery back there, which I would be in favor of. I just wanna make sure it's not gonna what's it gonna do for, like, traffic going into that area? Cause I don't live on that side, I just
My
wanna be.
concern is there's no parking, there's no parking to support
So
the
they-
decision.
They talked about that and they haven't really. First of all, there haven't been studies yet this is just words in the comprehensive plan at this point. But it is something that they'd be interested in setting up and doing, and it's something that would allow for the preservation of their buildings. I think there has been some talk about potentially seeing if there's a way to allow for parking and shuttling from some of these uses on this side to carry people over if this were to be whether it's an education center or a distillery or something of that nature. So there is
Drive, or is drive further down?
Mostly on the left side of the street.
Yeah, cause that's already a really busy parking area, that
That-
drive gym and all
That's
that.
all the way on the left side of the
Okay,
map there.
okay.
Would the areas on the right with the cisterns, so that would be the large industrial buildings that would probably be a brewery or event space.
So this is the building that they'd be interested in adaptive reuse. That's still functional and there would need to be security
Okay.
between, blocking off
Yeah.
public access to those.
Part of my question was if they expanded that to commercial use, since it's currently cut off, could parking be expanded there for access for safety on that side of the road for the park?
Well, they would need to get into some
Yeah.
preliminary schematic designs and figure out the parking situation. So that is an issue, but, we went back and forth with Joan a good bit, talking about what would be possible, and, the zoning across the street on the south is actually W1, so that's what is that, is that light industrial or office?
Industrial park.
Industrial park, thank you. That does allow for restaurant uses, tavern, schools, which would fit in with that educational facility, small craft breweries and limited distilleries. So as I understand, the zoning code sort of differentiates between larger ones and smaller ones. So the smaller ones would be permissible in that W1 zone. And not a lot of the noxious uses like fabrication and assembly and manufacturing, which I don't think the city of Annapolis would be interested in doing any of that anyway. That, they just want an opportunity to be able to reuse these properties. And so our pitch would be, or our, initial recommendation would be, in these areas, have a very limited split of allowing for W1 zoning just south of the dam. And then if you can pull up the other one as well, so that limited area there, so about 6.5 acres. I didn't realize I grabbed that screenshot, but I did. And put both of those in W1 zoning. It's consistent with what's across the street. And then it leaves the rest of it to be OS zoning, except for where the solar array is, where that would need to maintain its existing RA zoning.
So this is an example of when you're okay splitting.
Yeah, I know, it's just.
Yeah.
Confusing.
It is.
Because even open space is 90% of it's open space. It's
Well, then these historic buildings, they have no ability to be reused.
But
And
they couldn't get a non-conforming use under, like.
there's no use there now, so there's nothing.
Well,
Design
why
has to be
couldn't you
grandfathered
overlay that part as to be RLD, similar to the Crownsville site? And then maybe they could get a non-conforming use on.
That doesn't allow any of the uses that they,
Non-conforming use has to be pre-existing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But this is the type of reuse, like, things that are run down, making use of them rather than tearing up new areas.
Wouldn't it be nice to be more consistent with what the open space is? So like, the open space right now is used I've ridden a lot there. Mountain biking is huge use of waterworks, right? And then you've
Is
got
that the
some
Bacon
hiking,
Ridge Trail?
you've got, it's just like, it connects.
It goes all the way to
Way up.
like where PetSmart is.
Yeah, so it connects through, the other head of it is at PetSmart, yeah, that town hall complex there. And then hiking and fishing, like, there's a bunch of people that fish there too,
Catch and
actually.
release.
Yeah,
But this
so-
shouldn't stop that, right?
Well, I'm just,
Would W1 allow like, fishing supply?
right,
place?
or like a bike shop. I'm just trying to think of like.
I mean, that's what
would
their
that
letter
be
said,
still-
like, they did list a
Sports
sports or rec,
retail.
yeah,
Retail.
It would just support the public recreation.
yeah.
Like, otherwise it's just gonna sit there and not.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm for make use of it.
But
rather than-
I just don't want it to be something that conflicts with what the
Yeah.
intent of the rest of the entire parcel is, right? So.
Well, I would push
But
back a
you
little bit that, I mean, these are historically industrial uses there. You've got water treatment and
they're
that
gonna-
there, so.
Revitalize it into something that's more. What I don't wanna call it residential, but something that's more in terms with generating revenue for the city, which would be to take advantage of the rural area and landscape. If that's their objective, putting something like a restaurant to cater to the people that are in the park, or, a recreational store that sells fishing equipment or
Retail.
kayaks on the water.
Retail's not.
Retail's not allowed.
Oh, I thought they said a store for sports or something.
It was one of the ones. So,
What is
Why
it, what
why
is
can't it
W1?
just be commercial for a restaurant? Like, why does it have to be industrial?
So they've got the water, I would say they have the waterworks, water they still need.
Start industrial heritage.
in talking to the comprehensive planner, for the city, I think the primary interest was in the potential for brewery or distillery kind of use there, and then also the educational piece for the reservoir and the education, the park area and the history and all of that. So kind of those two uses were the key things of interest.
And that fits under
As
W1.
expressed, yes.
I mean,
Really?
with breweries.
Without any.
Not-
I just would be worried about the
Most of
parking, the footprint expanding.
They can't expand the footprint. From what they were saying, it has to stay in the
The
current.
C1 does.
CC4, it's just one of the examples, that's what I thought.
Before does.
Technically, they were proposing
what he's going on like something across the street with, so it's already has a W1.
Yeah, you said W1, so you gotta cross the.
Across the, or.
Well, it's not gonna be that different from what's across the street, right?
It's
I
just.
think it's
that
gonna be very
attached to
different.
all of the-
Because I don't think their intent is to redevelop. I think they want to reuse the existing
Sure.
buildings that are there.
Well, and they're historic, they're gonna have a lot of limitation.
Right, right.
Really good facility with you all.
Actually.
Yeah, I do feel like this is where I think I feel a little bit differently than an unknown private owner coming in and
That's the
asking
city.
for the moon.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're nervous about give them, C4 or whatever, and next thing you know, they sell and put in a gas station. This is the city of Annapolis, and they are dedicated to maintaining this park.
Yeah.
And this would be an opportunity for them to generate enough revenue to save these buildings and preserve them and have a use that.
I will say, it's not, the trail does go to Housley Road where you've got retail, where you
Yeah, that's
could
what-
have, where there is a sports store, right? There's,
Yeah.
640.
Yeah.
So that's, you can bike there pretty quickly.
Yeah. I guess I'm just.
But when you think about you're in the park and what you wanna be close to.
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused why it has to be industrial
W1, what's
versus
the
like a
difference?
high
Yeah.
commercial, like what they exactly.
Is the crux kind of floating around that it's like for a brewery compared to a restaurant, because a brewery would still need certain levels of like industrial
Water,
landscaping.
Yeah, treatment.
And treatment,
Yeah.
water treatment, and probably to get a tenant for the city to have a restaurant in an industrial building would be pretty untenable. Because a restaurant wouldn't have any use for all of the industrial
We'd have to
scale.
go to E4.
So to have a brewery or distillery, you're likely to get a tenant who's actually gonna fill it, use it.
Like, I would be more comfortable with C4 to allow the brewery and then get a non-conforming use for the water
You
treatment.
can't get a non-conforming use unless
But I mean, the water treatment
treatment.
plant is already there.
So
they
wouldn't
could- if
but-
it's already.
But that's a water treatment.
But you could
Yeah.
also
That's
look at-
already.
They'd have to stay water treatment.
And you could end up having,
see
taking
people
people
park
through,
there.
it's a new place where kids can learn about water treatment, they can learn about how our water is.
Well, I think that's gonna stay a water treatment. plant, right?
No, I'm talking about the old
The old
buildings, if you want to reuse them, and they said they wanted to use them possibly for educational purposes. Maybe they could turn it into an
Could be a
environmental museum of some sort,
Right.
because.
Or
I-
this is how a reservoir works. This is how,
It would be C4, it doesn't.
yeah, I guess.
But
Well, I
that's
just-
the nice thing
sure.
about that is it keeps it from being a gas station.
I
If
think,
it's-
see,
if it's
the-
happy with rain, productive.
when they're looking for best fit,
Right.
the best fit is the W's.
Okay.
And then C4 does allow a lot of uses that you wouldn't want there.
Yeah.
That's the point I was also what's adjacent to.
Exactly.
Theoretically, the city could develop property.
The C4 zone is our highway commercial zone. I feel like that is more intensive and less in keeping
C4 is,
with.
is that what you're saying? Okay.
W1, I mean, yes, it's
Okay.
an industrial zone, but it is our lowest
Yeah,
intensity
okay.
and very.
And
not
I
a
think
lot of
that's what I was
uses
trying to
that
get
are-
at. What's the
Like
difference?
bowling alley, isn't
Yeah.
that W zone?
I think it is.
Yeah. So you can have a
It's
bowling
generally
alley.
like office parks and stuff that are done.
But so your overlay, you're gonna try to overlay this new W1 area with the currently like deforested building. I mean, cause can't really see what you're even suggesting, but.
Yeah, there, the overlay is there.
Okay.
But I wouldn't use the word overlay. I mean, this would be a split zone
Right.
and that's.
Open space.
Well, she was
plus-
saying the map overlay of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it's the terminology again,
Yeah.
because you hear warehouse industrial, you think, oh, no, it's gonna be 100% paved over, but that's
It's just a limited area.
the zoning that you need to allow certain uses.
Yeah.
And the city's not gonna sell this. I
Right.
remind them that this is where all our water,
Yeah.
it's not from the
They're not.
reservoir, it's still down hundreds of feet. Yeah, maybe I'm like, not, I just looked at the capital budget, this already has 300,000 to design it, so.
Okay.
Well, so.
We have a vote.
No, I'm fine with it.
A vote?
I just didn't know about.
Okay, so the vote, pretty much, motion to have a vote on keeping the,
It would be,
split zone,
yeah,
right?
you want me to give you the motion?
Space,
It would be, it would be for Waterworks Park, primarily OS zoning, maintain RA zoning on the solar farm. And on these two identified areas, whether along Defense Highway with the historic buildings, those two places, our recommendation is W1 on those.
So is there any open space now, or it's currently all zoned RA?
There is, yes, there's a lot of open space zoning on the property now. It's not well aligned with the property lines.
So we would be getting more open space than we currently have. Some,
You would, yeah. You would be getting more open space zoning.
everywhere except the school.
Mhm. Yeah, so here's your existing zoning. So again, and you can see when they built a solar farm, they had to follow very carefully the existing OS zone there. So our recommendation is, bring all of this property to OS, portions of this to OS, and then W1, W1.
So can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thank you, second, thank you, everybody in favor?
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask if you do allow solar farm invest, or is that not?
It's not allowed.
Yeah.
Can you have non-conforming uses on OS or no?
Well, but it's not best practice at all to create a non-conforming use out of
One that.
with
already
the zoning
is in place.
change. All right, let's move to one of the applications, CRV 14. This is 1082 Epping Forest Road. This is about just under 4.5 acres, currently zoned R1. This was a request for C3 to build, and you saw the letter that came with the application to build what they called Epping Station, which is a local village area with local retail spaces right on the South Shore Trail. We did not make a recommendation because we wanted you all to have a discussion about that. I did get, so Joel had told us that he wasn't gonna be here. He had some thoughts that he wanted to share on this. He feels like there's, for the folks living in Rolling Knolls, there's already a convenience area very close along Bestgate and Housley Road. So is there a real need for this? But because this stretch of General's Highway is lightly built out with commercial uses, I think a little bit to the south. The vet's office, the senior living facility, a couple of churches. This might be good for a lighter type of non-residential use. And so I think he's just interested in what you all would think.
This intersection is really plagued with traffic and also that whole, even when they've added the new lights, it's been bad. And I mean, I guess I think a lot of people in the area are upset that the Parole Town Center got to expand past Bestgate Road. Like, we always look to that as the buffer, the containment, and so like saying it's close to where it shouldn't have spilled over anyways, I mean, it's just not supported with the size of the road and the traffic patterns that we have to have.
Part of their justification was, oh, water and sewer comes right up to the property, but they're outside the water service area and they're outside the service area. They're outside sewer and water service areas. It's like no service, you're not getting service. And they should know, they're not getting service. You don't just buy a property and say, oh, it's next door, we want to connect. You're in the no service area. So they were kind of deceptive with the wording, I felt, that they said, well, it's great because water and sewer come right up close to us. But it's not for them, it's for the businesses to the south. And I remember when the assisted living came in, this huge building, there was a lot of animosity about how are they allowed to do that? Why are you extending water and sewer into the rural area of the county? It's really not supported by.
So where exactly is this?
It's that triangle.
Right. You know where the vet is?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is Bestgate,
Across from Rolling
all
Knolls,
storage centers and all that bowling,
Yeah.
Old people know what it is, right?
Yeah,
You
so
know, Epping Forest lighted.
doesn't even go up there. This is Rolling Mill Elementary.
Yeah, the elementary school is right on the other side, yeah.
South Shore Trail will go in.
I thought you said it was through the South.
Another
Shore Trail, like,
perspective.
Stores.
It will.
Is, this is right across the street, it's right across the street from.
Hold on.
Let's
Yeah,
let
the
Melissa
Lisa.
have a word.
Just a thought that this, I mean, ended up looking at this from a lot of different perspectives, and one of the things that I thought made sense was it's right across the street from the vet, the animal hospital right now. And that lot has been empty and open and a mess for 10 years. More,
Had that old
okay.
little.
So it's just
structure, right?
sitting there, they can't do anything with it. The trail is coming down right next to it. So there will be some bike trails and there will be people using it to stop and get something to drink, because along that trail, if you don't stop there, you have to go all the way down to Bestgate. So it's just, something that's, I could see it being useful. I could see it being useful for people farther up General's Highway that don't want to go all the way into Annapolis or all the way to the Safeway that's up there. If they just wanted to get, I forgot to pick up the milk, just a convenience something, I don't know. If I understand correctly, when they put in the new,
But it's gonna be a car wash, that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's, P3 says car wash. department
It also
stores,
allows-
centers. Is there,
the only other point is that they have, if I understand correctly, when they put in the emergency management area up near Ram's Head, they are extending water and sewer up there. No, they're not. Well, that's what they said at the town meeting I went to.
Why would they?
Because
What purpose does it serve? It's outside the planned water service, it's outside the planned sewer service.
all I can tell you is what I've heard, that.
Yeah, a lot of people spread rumors at those meetings. A lot of people said that the hospital site was gonna give public water and sewer to everybody in Crownsville, and it's just not true.
This was one of the people that was speaking about it, and they said that they are looking at expanding the sewer and water up to that point. I'm just saying, if it is something, it's gonna go right past there. I'm just providing an alternative perspective about this one
Yeah.
space. I think if there's anything, any place where there is probably an interest in having something down in this area, that would be a good space for it.
Is this one that we might wanna recommend different, so they want see, can we do, this is just an
Yeah,
application.
so I had
This is theirs. Darn it.
Oh, no,
Right.
this was an application, but that is something, I wrote him a
Like
little
a
note here.
C1.
Would the SAC want to consider something like C1?
C1, right?
Because again,
That makes sense.
C3, you open up all of those uses
Yeah.
in the C3 list, which
Yeah.
are intense.
Right.
Or
Um,
SB,
but I'm-
small business, SB, is
recommendation.
that what our?
Can I also add, the people on the property, it's an LLC that bought it less than a year ago, and now they're developing, it's a development LLC. They bought it with the intent to upzone it to make the maximum profit. And it's next to the trail, but there's a solid 10-12 foot gradient between this property and that trail. You can't just wander over to the building. It's a 12 foot drop, it's almost cliff-like, and they're very steep.
They could probably.
So, and I just could go down to Epping Forest and along Epping Forest around the corner, or do a whole
Or
lot of
the
digging up.
developer could build around,
That's true.
anything's
There are ways
possible.
around it, there are ways around it, just like there are ways around building on wetlands, and there are ways around doing a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I'm just surprised at your considerations, considering your, adversity to more traffic.
Yes.
Because if you upzone this
Mhm.
to commercial, you're promoting more traffic on General's Highway.
Well, not
So you're
like,
not being consistent.
And
against
the
your
traffic
position.
light-
I guess I'm trying to be consistent because I'm thinking that people down here might be able to stop there instead of having to get on General's Highway. There are a lot of people that are down Epping Forest Road that right now have to go out to General's Highway to get any access to coffee shop, convenience store, you name it, they have to go out.
is that part of why they live there?
Yeah.
You're gonna have South Shore Trail there that takes you straight to the mall, it's less than a mile away, you can
But if
bike
we were
there in
talking,
5
she was
minutes.
just mentioning my
Yeah.
my
I
comments
agree.
about traffic. I'm
Never
trying to
mind.
explain why I am trying to be.
Not everybody can drive, AKA.
I
So
agree.
I can't drive,
More
right now,
accessible.
I'm not allowed to
Yeah.
drive.
So I think that we are kind of like, this is kind of like an interesting conversation related regarding to an application. One important thing that I have seen in many of the applications is like, there's a lot of assumptions when they submit those, right? The assumption between there's going to be sewage and water. Also, when we attended the training, the 911 Academy training, we asked, have you done a study about, do you have enough water? And the answer was like, no, we haven't, but we believe, and there's, again, a lot of assumptions with these projects. So I think that just to move the conversation further in terms of making a recommendation, it would be great for us to consider everything that we know about traffic, about the potential use, the South Shore Trail proximity, also the Epping Forest communities. I mean, I have seen that light, and that light gets very long for all that community that wants to get out, and then they have to wait. So imagine that you have to do a U-turn in regardless. It's like there's a lot of logistics that are probably beyond our kind of like the recommendation, but it would be great for us to think about what do we think will be the best use of that property, considering the application of the current owner for a C3 from an R1.
And the South Shore Trail would be on the other side of the highway, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's right there.
It's right
there.
over.
Coming
It
down right
switches. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Can we do two votes maybe?
Hold on, Patrick and.
I was gonna say, wait,
Yes,
hold on.
I'm just gonna comment on the water and sewer you guys were talking about, and I can just confirm it is in the no public service for sewer and for water. It is directly, just the parcels to the south are in plan service, so they could submit an amendment to the water sewer master plan and say, we would like to connect, and that is something that we would evaluate. And since it is so close, it's right on that boundary, it would be one that would.
And then
I
in
would
10
say
years,
we-
the next parcel
Yes,
map will be
well,
like,
so
well,
this
there's
is-
commercial.
so
so
I guess,
we-
so I'm not saying that that would be a given, I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm giving
But
you
it's
the
a
information
consideration.
that it is close to that spot, but it is in the no public service for both.
Okay, good, Patrick, yeah.
Well, I was gonna suggest, okay, so I think I'm hearing kind of three potential recommendations here. One, the applicant requested C3 and we could take a vote on support the C3 recommendation, pending or assuming that this neighborhood wants some more convenience retail and all of those things. We could recommend something that is a lower intensity C1. And that's a statement of, sure, commercial in that area, but a little bit less intense. Or you can say, no, that's not consistent with the surrounding residential character. You've got Parole Town Center almost immediately next door to the south. That's the area for your goods and services and such. So maintain the existing R1. I'm kind of hearing those three potential outcomes here. I don't think anybody's thinking anything otherwise, right?
No.
No.
Could we pull, I keep going back to our vision statement, because isn't that what we're supposed to be grounded in? Like, how does this fit? If we were to look at our vision statement and look at this, like how it is tracked, right? Sorry.
I couldn't really find it either. Is it in?
It's in one of our,
Unity, the second part.
If anyone remembers exactly what it does, but I feel like that should be our controlling.
Our North Star.
Yeah, guiding principle.
Yeah, because there was a lot of conversation, if I remember correctly, about the little business, local business nodes, and that we wanted not to use a car, so.
And we're promoting things where there already is something, not forested track.
so the draft statement as it is, Region 6 protects, enjoys, enhances its natural areas, trail network, and historic crossroads communities. Essential services are provided by focusing development within revitalized local business hubs. Traffic on local roads is minimized, trails and transit safely connect residents to larger, more urban commercial areas and adjoining regions.
I can make the argument for and against using that. And enhancing the trails by giving people the ability to put stuff that support them.
That was
but-
another piece of Bill's email,
By giving.
But the counter argument is that the trail will connect them
Right,
to the
to
more
the
urban
hub.
commercial area.
Yeah.
It's like.
They might wanna
if
ride their bike
people-
by tree.
If people in Epping Forest can't drive the Safeway on Housley Road because it's too far, they should move out to Harold Harbor, right? Like,
That's where I go grocery shopping is the Safeway on Housley Road. It's 4 times as far away or whatever it is. It's fine. we're all doing fine, right?
Well, and the
And then it
revitalized.
says revitalized.
Yeah.
Right? This is not revitalized. This is
New.
this is vitalized,
Yeah.
right? There's no re about it. And not to be hyperbolic, but like, if we could go back in time to whatever meeting they were approving zoning changes on Route 3, this is exactly how those meetings probably went, right? Like,
Started.
oh, well, this one's connected to this one already. We'll just do this one. It's what,
Yeah,
they need a
but
chicken
that's-
restaurant in Crofton, guys. Well, and then 15 years later, it's like, we need up here in Millersville, we need a chicken restaurant. It's too far to go down to Watch Apple for the chicken restaurant. So, I appreciate you bringing this up, James, because that's how I read it is revitalized. Well, this zoning change would not be revitalizing anything, it would be vitalizing something.
Yeah.
And connecting the trails, well, if that's the point in the trail that we're talking about, like, that's as connected to the
Hubs.
urban commercial areas in adjoining regions as you get.
Yeah.
What do we want to do? 2 votes or 1 vote? A vote to,
Go ahead.
Can I, something to this, is that, yeah, if we're gonna say just anything along South Shore Trail needs to be upzoned, that's the entire length of General's Highway is along South Shore Trail.
Yeah.
Right.
So just being the next to the trail shouldn't be
enough.
the
Yeah.
litmus test for development. And you're right, it's not an existing commercial area. And if you look at the impervious area that's allowed for C4, it's what, double or triple what's allowed in residential? It's a lot more impervious area. And they will need to put in parking, even if you say, oh, they're all coming by the trail, they have parking requirements.
What are the requirements for like, one of the things I like in Severna Park is along their trail, they'll have like a coffee trailer or something, like. I feel like that's like a use
Could
that's
pop up or-
clearly for pedestrian or bicycle use and not for like cars.
No, I love people to drive down and get my groceries. That's fun. I live on General's Highway. It'd be so convenient.
People in Rolling Knolls walk to that Safeway on Housley. I'm seeing them. They walk to the liquor store and they walk to the Safeway and they come back carrying bottles and bags. So that's not too far to go on a trail, and they don't even have a sidewalk. They just walk in the road.
So two.
So another
Two or three
perspective
votes.
is, right now, that space is the church on one side, that hospital on another, you've got the school right there, and then you keep going down, Brightview, another church, Annapolis Onyx. I mean, it is commercial.
And here's the thing we've talked about before, marching commercial down General's Highway. It started, the mall was the end, and then they built past the mall, and then they put warehouse, the bowling alley. Just commercial stuff keeps expanding and marching down General's Highway, and part of our discussions were, there's gotta be a line they can't cross.
That's true.
There's gotta be an end to the commercial development, and that should be, I think, where the water and sewer stops now. We shouldn't just keep adding more and adding more and adding more.
And talking about the, I wanted to point out where go pan up just a little bit. The existing parole town center, and we're gonna talk about it when we talk about these applications here. The line is here, so it is just to the south of the Brightview Center. But that is the parole town center, currently, so, and that is our most intensive, development in the county.
I think, to my mind, those parcels near the water tower, it makes sense to change the zoning because you've got a solid barrier there. You've got Rolling Knolls fully built out, then a county water tower, and then Annapolis Town Center. It makes sense. There's a concrete stopping point where you say, this is it, this is the limit.
And there's some
So-
abandoned buildings in that area, so
Yeah.
they're not even using what.
Revitalizing.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
revitalizing.
So going back to,
Conflict with the mission statement.
so going back to the Epping Forest Road, I think that we can make a vote on what we want to do with this recommendation. It's like right now, again, the request was C3, currently is R1. So, does the group feel that it should stay as R1? Or what is our recommendation?
I'll make a motion to stay as R1.
I'll second.
Okay, everybody in favor? And again, we can disagree with a recommendation from the staff.
We don't have a recommendation.
Oh, yeah. Did you wanna vote or, I mean, you asked
I
about,
was more
you asked about
interested, I was
C1
more
too.
interested in the C1.
Yeah, so I didn't know.
Which is a reasonable accommodation.
That's what I was just wanting to make sure no one else wanted to vote on
It's
a
just too
C1.
much, but a C1 makes sense to me because it's not like there's anything else that they can do with that spot. That's been proven over the past. I've been here for over 10 years and it's been empty, but that's not a reason to do it other than maybe it's a better use than empty.
Well, they could have built a home there anytime in the last 10 years. They could have built, probably subdivided and built a couple of homes depending on the zoning. Anytime.
I don't think anyone.
We have a lot of properties around the county that have not yet been developed. It's just they haven't done it yet. It's not because they
Did
can't.
that one pass?
What's SB?
Is there any interest in
Small
staff
business.
Does be a
changing this to
option for
C1?
this person.
Sure, I mean, if you all could recommend.
Yeah,
a
we
vote
can
on
make
this.
another
Do
motion.
you wanna
Of
talk about
course.
what?
I mean, if anything, that seems like it could be reasonable for that property, given what we're talking about. C3 seems way too far.
Big.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, all that.
C3 accommodates Walmart.
On the ground.
I
I mean, that's
finally.
I've been waiting my whole life.
Yes, a motion,
Do
please,
you
Melissa?
recommend that we agree to a C1 zoning?
Or SB, small business or?
Small business is
Small
not
business
as
is
objectionable,
C1,
right?
I thought we talked SB last time, and that's for like running a business out of your.
It's not
home
necessarily,
or something?
you come up with 10,000.
Could you have a
Building.
Okay.
coffee shop or like
That
whatever?
includes Starbucks
Come on, Dunkin' Donuts brands, right?
or chicken place.
Thank
No
you.
drive-throughs, right?
Yeah, I know.
So, okay, the motion, Melissa, is to vote for C1. C1, a second. Okay, everybody, that.
Two for C1.
I was just.
Yeah.
The
No,
second.
we don't.
And you're gonna vote.
Yeah, we're going to vote.
Okay.
So we're going to vote. Everybody in favor for C1 recommendation, raise your hand. Two.
Okay.
This is on top of our previous one or beside?
I think it would be.
It's
Really
an
instead.
alternative.
What
So-
about,
An alternative,
Right.
Yeah,
rather than
because,
telling them no, giving them an option.
because again, and I'm sorry to remind everybody, but this is we made recommendations, and again, the county council can decide, yes, C3
Right.
sounds lovely, and we will approve it. So, I mean, that's a
Especially when they're like,
possibility.
"Well, here's the
Yes,
one."
especially because it was a request, correct? Right, Patrick, that they can say yes, of course.
It's ultimately the.
What's the
council's.
name of the applicant? Are we allowed to know that?
I think it's on the
it-
vacation.
it wasn't.
Was that redacted? It's
I don't know.
redacted.
Cause they were trying to put a car wash at the bottom, so I mean,
What is
C3, it might be a car wash. You never, that's what I.
What
got.
about SB? Does anyone wanna vote on that or no?
I would support it. I certainly.
Yeah,
would
okay.
vote.
Okay, so
I
we
just
still
wanna
have
make sure.
Cheryl over there, it's like, yes,
Yeah.
so,
Well, regardless, if you all voted prior, but you are also, or you're.
yeah, like as an
interested in
alternative.
SB, let's see where that lands and we
Okay.
can narrow it down from there.
So the motion will be as an additional alternative is to vote, in favor of SB. Can I have a motion, a second? Okay, everybody in favor? And approve? I will.
Okay. All right.
Patrick, in your experience, once our recommendations are made, what things bring it to more attention to the council? Like, is it the developer that may know someone that gets their attention or? I'm just asking that, and I'll have this question.
It's a loaded.
No.
Yes, that's
What's that?
yes, political influence can be a piece of it, but they do ask, what was the SAC discussion? This is a great discussion, and I mean, in the table that moves forward, we need to put down that there was a vote. I think overall the support is R1. Gotta do math and figure out, does that meet the 2/3 threshold, whatever, but, we can, when we brief them, we will talk about this conversation that was had and that there were different perspectives and, ultimately they may support on some, way that maybe is not in the map that is given to them, but, I think they will take into consideration the SAC discussion. They will also ask the public comment that is received on this, and there will be public comments because this will be flagged as an application. And that's another thing too, and I probably should have said this before y'all took your votes, but if you wanted to put something out there and just kind of float it and see what the public reaction is, you could do that as well. We could put out there C3 is what the SAC supports at this stage, at this preliminary stage, get input, and then if that goes over well, then that's information that you have. And if it goes over very poorly, you can revisit that and change.
Because the application, it's public, right? It's like
It will be,
anybody
yes.
can-
So when
okay.
we will put out a web app that is less glitchy than this, and it has all of those applications linked in there, and people can see the redacted applications, what the request is. And,
I mean, I
So-
think everything we've heard from everyone in the region, it's been keep it as rural as
Yeah.
possible, so.
But I think that that's a very important point to remind everybody that it's going to be, the applications are going to be live, available for the public to make comment. And just the fact that this is a very kind of like more, require more discussion and some disagreement, and it will be important for others, especially I will really encourage if anybody that is listening from the Epping Forest communities to really talk about it, because they're the ones that are going to be directly impacted by whatever decision is made on that property. It's like, all of us, yes, the traffic will be bad, but they are the ones that have to take that road to get out of their houses.
It
So,
would be fun to have an ice cream place. To be allowed.
but yes, but again, encouraging the public to make the comment whenever the applications are live and open to the public. That would be great.
Where the bowling alley is W1, it would allow a distillery for, right,
Yeah.
a lot of those
Yeah, yeah.
uses that would.
And then the cannabis place behind it and.
Yeah, really, great place for kids. They might just volunteer.
Okay, so,
Be very
I can-
productive to have a brewery right next to the.
Bowling
distillery.
alley.
Yeah, right next to the weed dispensary.
You got the-
You know?
It would be a little bit comforting to have a trail that goes to the dispensary, so
Yeah.
they could.
all right.
So I think on this
You're
one,
asking what weed does.
Smoke and ride.
All right.
Alright, yeah, I mean,
Let's get back to our conversation, teams.
if y'all are comfortable with the vote that you just had, I think that based on that, the SAC recommendation is gonna be to maintain R1.
Right.
But we would need to, in our briefings with decision makers, we could talk about this site
I think that's good.
specifically, and I'm sure we're gonna get public comment as well, and so
Yeah.
we would wrap that up into that conversation as
Yeah.
well. So if we're comfortable with moving forward in that vein. I might skip over on the cheat sheet that I've given you, Beatrice, and go, because we just started talking about the Rural Town Center and those 4 properties right here, and so I want to go ahead and talk about those, just in case that conversation, I don't know if that triggers any change in what we just talked about, but this one, 4 parcels, they're about 9.5 acres, and they currently have R2 zoning. So this is the water tower, on the left as you're heading up General's Highway. There's a non-conforming contractor's yard, and then there are 3 houses on these properties. So they requested town center zoning, and they proposed residential, office, retail, mixed-use development. This is located within the Parole Town Center, and this was a change. The Parole Town Center master plan was updated, I think 2023 is when it was adopted. And there was a council amendment then that actually brought these 4 properties into the Parole Town Center, and it, exactly as Claudia said, it made the water tower, the real buffer property between Rolling Nose and Points North and the Parole Town Center. So our recommendation here is we supported the town center zoning. We would recommend revising the development policy area as it was adopted with Plan 2040. Revise that from the neighborhood preservation to applying town center development policy area to this, to these 4 properties. And then we would also recommend adjusting the region boundary to place these properties into Region 7. So that they're not even within Region 6 at all. And that way it's all consistent with the Pearl Town Center to the south. And then the next round of region plans, then anything with regard to these 4 properties is all considered jointly with the Pearl Town Center and the rest of Region 7.
I just look at that as losing ground. Like, we had this buffer, we're losing part of the buffer, should have never been part of the town center. Bestgate Road should have been the line. We're just losing more and more, and we're inching up, and next time they're gonna be after the next stretch of parcels, so it's already part of the town center. There's no.
It's already part of the town center, and the higher, what we call bulk regulations that are allowed under, so the Pearl Town Center has a range of zoning, as you can see there, but there's what's called a zoning overlay that applies on top of the entire Pearl Town Center, all the way down to where we are in this building here. All of this is the Pearl Town Center. And within that overlay, there are additional allowances that allow for greater density, usually reduced setbacks, those kinds of things on properties within the town center, greater number of uses already under the overlay provisions. Now I would point out, so within the Pearl Town Center master plan, there are different what's called sub areas, and a lot of the bulk regulations, the setbacks, the density or allowances are applied by those sub areas, and the sub area that these 4 are in allow for a maximum setback of 35 feet on the front. So that kind of precludes large parking lots in the front of properties, and that's by design. The town center is meant to be dense and more walkable and that sort of thing. So we want that development a little bit closer to the road. So no large parking lot in the front. And then, let me finish. And then there is a reduced height provision within the town center overlay that would limit to 3 stories, properties that are adjacent to residential zoning, and then within 100 feet of residential zoning. So there'd be 100-foot buffer that would require at least no more than 3 stories on at least a portion of those 4 properties. So.
But, so it abuts though, just to be clear, it abuts waterworks, right?
That's
Just
weird.
waterworks thing behind it, yeah, no, I'm just trying to place it
I just
too.
can't understand why that's part of the town center, why those 3 parcels were put in, makes no sense.
It's the same owner as all of these properties here.
Well, just because it's the same owner, I mean, that's not what land use is based, I mean, the maps are not based on ownership, so it's.
I
We
think,
had a developed area and then now you're just arbitrarily, increasing it up.
I think though, if we compare this to the other properties we've looked at, this does have public water and sewer service, right? It's adjacent to the town center, it's got a buffer between the town center and Rolling Knolls, which is already kind of dense residential for our area. But I don't think we're conceding much here. It's kind of matching what's across the street, it's matching the adjacent property that's already developed.
Counterpoint though, to that comment is like, this is right where. This is right where the craziness is, right? When the highway folks came here, right, that intersection of 178 and Bestgate was like bright red,
Yeah.
nuclear red, right? And if you've ever turned, I mean, we've all turned northbound on the Generals from Bestgate, and
Yeah.
like, it's the Indy 500 making that merge happen there at the wood shop. and now we're gonna do that on the opposite side of.
That's why I'm saying,
Yeah.
I can't understand why that was put in the town center, it has no
My
transit.
counterpoint is like, you're, like, we run the risk of just mirroring the problems that are happening on the northbound lane. Just flipping it over to the southbound lane because it looks contiguous on a map, and I don't know that that's.
I think it's already functioning as a commercial space, though. It's already got a business operate, a very large business operating there, right? It's a lot more than landscaping, but yeah, it's a very busy business.
I,
You have trucks
isn't
coming
that
and
the
going.
area where there's a bunch of like buildings with the roofs collapsed?
Yeah.
That's the next one,
That's
that's the one I think should be the IT.
Yeah,
It's that general area.
I think that's just,
Yeah.
Well, it's traffic
What's
because of
across
like
the
rush hour,
street?
like, you know,
Right
people are
up
taking
the
snap,
block.
that's, you know, all in LA traffic, and people are gonna go here during.
That's
Right.
it.
No, that's the bowling alley.
zoom out a bit.
That's the bowling alley.
No,
Farther down.
The mall, you got the mall right here.
No, right across the street from it.
This?
Yes, that.
That's a vacant parcel.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't it
pretty
next
big
to the
gully there.
Yeah.
Technically.
And it's already a C what?
Currently C3.
There's a farmer's market there or something like.
There
that.
was, until they kicked them out because they were gonna develop it, but I guess I was just thinking if someone really wants to develop, that's probably where they should.
Just fix up those ugly
Well,
buildings.
that has some that
Yeah.
corner has, yeah, that's an environmental.
Yeah, but that's where they wanted to put the car wash.
They wanted a car wash.
I don't want a car wash.
All right, so back to the request, so is the request just to move it to a different region? Or is it to change the?
That's our
zoning?
recommendation. So the request was, they want town center zoning because they're in the town center. OPZ's recommending, supporting the town center zoning request. And then we also are recommending change the development policy area to town center and adjust the region boundary to put it, so those are our recommendations to kind of be consistent with all of it at once.
It would align it with the underlying land use, which is town center, right? Cause we want the zoning to match the planned land use.
The planned land use would need to change as well because
Never
Yeah.
mind.
the town center, Pearl Town Center Master Plan was adopted after Plan 24.
Okay.
I mean, there's gotta be some housing in town centers, if you just leave it R2, you can get 3 dwellings per acre, and then they can use all the.
Well, that's not really consistent with what the town center is about.
Well, they want.
Right next to it.
Yeah.
The owners wanna turn in something commercial, and it's near a bunch of commercial stuff. And it's a town center.
So are they gonna have to expand General's Highway to make the town center viable there? Cause how?
They would be required
They're gonna
to
expand.
mitigate
It's gonna look-
whatever traffic impacts are, are expected from their redevelopment.
Would their current use still be allowed when it's changed to town center? Or would they still be non-conformed?
Ooh, I think the contractor's yard would not be allowed. This is an Article 17 question.
At the same time, it's a pretty unsightly area right now. If we give people the ability to invest in it, it might hit other people to fix up their area.
I don't think these are unsightly, it's the next one that's.
Well, I know, but I'm saying it's like unsightly and then that, so.
Or it could just have words.
Contractor yards are not permitted in the town center, so that would go away.
Would they be allowed to stay as a non-conforming use?
No.
They're existing.
They could, I mean, they're not gonna request.
But
They're
their
not gonna
intention,
request to be non-conforming just to stay.
their intention is to develop it into town center, I'm sure. Which would get rid of the unsightly whatever that's.
What does traffic mitigation mean if there's not really any room to mitigate?
they can't mitigate.
If there's not any,
Well, if we up the zoning and they are increasing their commercial capacity, but there really is no room to mitigate the traffic flow.
they'd be required, I mean, they could, I won't say what could,
They have to spend a certain amount of money to make certain improvements to make it better. even though that doesn't fix it. But that's true of any development, is if you break the 50 trips a day threshold, you're required to do a traffic study. That traffic study tells you if there are any failing intersections within a certain distance of your development. And if there are any failing intersections, you would have to make some improvement to mitigate your impact, not to fix the failing intersection. So if that intersection gets, say, 50,000 trips a day, and you're contributing 100, that's like, say, 500, 50,000 trips contribute, that's 10%. You need to make like some improvement that gets you back 10% of that. You don't have to fix the intersection. You don't have to fix the road. You have to do something. And that, I think, is what gets a lot of people, oh, they're not doing anything. Like there have been proposals to just, oh, change the timing on the lights and we've mitigated our impact. But they've not really changed the road. They've not done a whole, but and the other thing that I think the county is looking at as far as adequate public facilities is they don't address safety with adequate public facilities. They address capacity, getting more cars down the road. And that's not necessarily an improvement, getting more cars down. We don't want more cars down General's Highway. We want a safer road. Hopefully, we want a safer road. So as it stands now, the adequate public facilities law doesn't make you make a safer road. It makes you make a higher capacity road.
How did the planners of the county decide to make this part of the town center? Well, that was
You
part
said
of
it's 'cause it was-
2040,
That
It was
part of the
amended
land
at
that was on.
council.
based on your recommendations that there was
It was the property.
traffic that could.
Yeah, it was
support
a
this.
property owner request and the amendment was made at council.
So there's no supporting, planning and zoning or Plan 2040 or transit plans that supported it. It was just a council decision.
I don't
based
remember
on
if
the
we,
first plan.
And it sounds like they were
I don't
making the
think we
decision.
opposed-
and they
I don't
said
think we
do it
opposed
based on
it.
the property owner line.
Yeah, because he owns the other ones, right? That one
Yeah.
you said,
Yeah.
it's the same property owner.
So my guess is he's a friend and he made a donation or.
When does not make assumptions here.
Well, you know, maybe they wanna develop it similar to their adjacent property. right?
Yeah.
That's the thing, the adjacent properties aren't developed, they're like run down. So,
But if you look at, if the yellow overlay is not on, you'll see there's a huge amount of, I don't know if it's impervious or if see all that, it looks paved over. Like that middle lot.
So
Yeah,
we're saying
like
the owners
everything
own
south-
the bank property,
Do they own the bank or the town?
SRF building products?
Yeah.
Do you see the two?
Because those are all commercial.
Oh, wow, that's
Oh,
a JND property.
Here's the
Above that,
same,
yeah.
yeah. Same owner owns the apartment built, oh wait, no, does he?
I mean, I'm of the
No, he said
mindset
it's
of
just,
until he fixes up the stuff he's already got, that looks commercial, he shouldn't be able to add more, like invest in the stuff he wants to build.
I think the
He might be
point
like
is, I think the point is to do it all at once. So why invest in the rundown bit when you're gonna come back and just do it all at once? I think is kind of the.
Or maybe that's contaminated with asbestos and he's like, I'll just leave that one alone and everything
Yeah,
that's.
that doesn't stop people nowadays. I mean, this is not
Yeah,
as
you could-
difficult to
you could
remediate
contain it now, man.
as it
Yeah.
used to be. So asbestos doesn't usually slow people down that much.
Okay.
Just our last little hearing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I go either way with it really, but I think that it's already acting as commercial. It's right next to town center. The folks in Rolling Knolls are already walking past it to get to shops, so if their shop's closer to their home. I mean, it does kind of
look at all
sound
the
similar to the
trees.
one by the veterinarian, but this is in existing water and service area, so it's got utilities.
I mean, to me, it is already a commercial area, I just
Yeah.
hate the idea of people developing, I hate when someone builds something new next to something run down without people fixing up the rundown.
Just think the odds of them fixing up the rundown thing are gonna increase if they're able to build
Yeah.
something else there, and I agree with you, I hate that weird collapsing building.
Yeah,
Like, I want it to go away.
Yeah.
I'm like, at least tear it down.
Yeah.
When you drive down Housley, past the bank, there are two homes before you get to the apartments. I believe the same person owns those two homes.
Yes.
So we can go knock on the
So-
door and be like, what are you doing about
He
that?
doesn't live in them.
Yeah, right,
It's-
exactly.
You need a certain amount of land to make
Town development.
Some things,
A big,
yeah.
yeah, a big
And
development.
probably they haven't reached critical mass yet, they need that bit extra. To do
So
what
if
they're
we
doing.
big something and our commute is going to double. Our commute is gonna be. so much
there.
better.
Yes, that corner, that, it starts in that corner.
There, and then go
right.
up.
Yep.
And go up. You do it. You do it.
It's like all that.
Corner.
Okay.
It is
There
a
we
big
go.
on the corner. So that same
That's the collapsed building.
That's what you hate.
Yeah, and then you go past it,
Yeah, it's a big
and then it's like an empty lot, I thought.
Yeah.
No, it's
There's
not
a
right.
house-
They're
there's
just
a house-
behind.
A house,
Yeah,
They're
there's
just
a
far back.
contractor behind,
yeah, they're just behind
I
it.
believe it's this house. And then this water tank here,
Yeah, the
would
water
remain,
tower.
and that's
Stress me
the,
out. It's a big town.
that would be the,
It doesn't stress me out now.
I mean, that's the thing to think about, right? You want a 3-story commercial complex right there.
Yeah, you've already got.
With that
two
traffic
house story.
intersection,
Yeah,
like, just-
At this part of the whatever, where people are darting into the suicide lane
yeah.
already.
but here's another thing I will say, if this area redevelops, I mean, likely they're going to have to provide
Egress, egress.
bike infrastructure and pedestrian infrastructure, possibly dedicate another travel lane, I don't know for sure. So those are the types of things that can come about with redevelopment. Otherwise,
I mean, I guess our council has already decided that this area is gonna change.
It's part of the Pearl Town
This,
Center
cause like
already.
this is not consistent with what it looks like now, but they decided it should change. So you're saying what they decided it should change to is.
It's almost 8:30. Do we wanna vote?
Yes. Okay. It sounds like there's, I don't know, in one sense of.
I'm curious to see where it's going.
Yeah.
our recommendation is town center zoning and,
What did they ask for?
Yeah.
What did they
and that was
They
what they.
asked for
Yeah.
town center zoning, right now is R2,
To move
so.
it to 7, or is that just something you guys do?
We will make that recommendation, and we would make the recommendation to change to the town center policy area as well. We really need your vote on the zoning, and if there's
And the region.
heartburn about the others, we would note
Yeah.
that, but it's really the zoning that we need to know your.
Yes, so the vote on the zoning right now is R2, and the question is town center, and the recommendation is to grant that town center zoning, correct? So
Right.
can I have a motion to, approve? Thank you, second? Thank you. Everybody in favor of the recommendation from the staff?
To
To make it town center
To
zoning.
make it a town center, moving from R2 to a town center zoning.
So we have 5 in favor of that,
Yes.
and then maybe a vote on
Anyway.
retaining the existing R2 zoning.
Yes, a second motion of retaining the current R2 zoning. Can I have a motion? Second, Thank you. Everybody in favor?
R2 zoning. Okay, okay.
All right. Thank you. That's all right. Yeah. So, and we're not even getting, so what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should, and just to put a bow on that one, I think I'm gonna interpret the R2 vote as not a change. You all don't want the policy area change, and you, do you feel differently about the region 7 boundary change?
Kind of tricky.
What's a,
Yeah, I guess I'm in disagreement with it being the town center and thus part of Region Center, but.
okay,
How are the folks in Region 7? Are they cool?
What would
they vote for?
Exactly, what they voted, do you think?
Your logic for making the change makes sense.
Patrick, currently, the, Region 7 stopped at Best Gate and Housley.
the full town center, no.
The Region 7.
Oh,
No,
region 7,
Yeah.
Other than Region 7, I'm cool.
All right.
What'd you
This is the line here, and then on this side, all of this stuff is within region 7.
Right here, make this Region 7 and make it.
It is, that's
It
what we're
seems
trying
like
to
it
clean up.
keeps
Why
shifting
don't we
every
just
time. they
take
keep
over all the way down to Best Gate?
because it's within, this is within the town center,
Yes.
so.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and, yes, so just like a final motion to adjourn, and, everybody,
Third.
Right.
thank you. And.
Our
Yep.
next meeting is what, 3 weeks?
I think
Great.
so.
Okay.
Third time. You guys really.
What did you say?
All right.
Yeah.
You'll get an email.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. for
Thank you all.
Okay, so much appreciated.
Of it.
Yeah, right. So-